Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kicking It with Kruse. My name is Ben Cruz, as always. Uh, Welcome back. I know it's been a while since we've done a show. It's been a while, at least for me, but I am glad to be back and giving you guys all the latest content with the sports and other news that's been around the league. I will, get through a bunch of stuff, at least in baseball tonight, from the latest of the Home Run Derby, the All Star Game. I'm going to talk about some of the first half awards. I'm going to also talk about the latest with Shohei Ohtani, as he is going to be the biggest ticket for this offseason and potentially at the trade deadline. So we'll talk about that. I'll also talk about the second half and some predictions we'll have for that. Uh, and before we get all into the other fun stuff specifically, I forgot to mention to make sure that to follow, like, subscribe to our program on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the fun stuff there. Uh, I also do a show on Sports Weekly on IM6MI6 Network called Sports Weekly. Make sure to tune that out for that specific show. And then we're also going to be doing Batter Up pretty soon, which is an all baseball show, as well as Extra Point is going to be coming back this week. I know, not this week. This month. Sorry, I know it's been a while for me to be back. So I'm trying to kind of get myself back into the swing of things for this here. But yeah, anyway, outside of baseball, we'll talk kind of the second half stuff for that. We'll talk about some of the sweepstakes for Ohtani. We're going to actually give our big pitches for our own respective teams. Yes, I'm also going to be more than likely having James Gonzalez and Isaiah Leon, my two guests as usual on my show, to come on a little bit later for tonight. So they'll be coming on, and probably we'll be able to give our pitches by then for that. And then we'll get into some football stuff. Crazy enough, we're 2 weeks in until training camp. So it's getting to that time of year again. Crazy that pretty much we're at like midpoint of summer. I know it's insane. But want to get to some football stuff tonight. There's obviously some stuff on some guys that are currently on the franchise tag that have till Monday. They'll talk about specifically if they're going to hold out, if they're going to get the long-term extensions, guys like Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and others. We're also going to do our 1 through 5 ranking of our top quarterbacks for this upcoming season. And then we'll get into some NBA stuff. Damian Lillard, the James Harden stuff. LeBron James had a big announcement at the ESPYs the other night, and some other stuff as well. So feel free to jot down some stuff, in the comment section. I love to answer at the end of the show for tonight. But without further ado, sit back, kick back, relax, and enjoy our fun program we're going to have. And without further ado, we will get started, and we will kind of get started with the overall of the MLB in terms of our segment for there. And we'll start with the overall home run derby. Now, the home run derby was Monday night, this past Monday night in Seattle. That's where the whole All-Star game festivities and stuff like that were taking place. And I gotta say, I thought that as a whole, that the All-Star game and the festivities went really well run. I thought that Seattle's a great place. It was over in the West Coast. I thought it was a really cool spot. Actually, Safeco Field or T-Mobile Park is on my bucket list to go see at some point down the road when my Red Sox are go there. Which, by the way, another thing about baseball, really quick, is the Major League Baseball 2024 schedule. Yes, 2024 schedule. I know it's crazy, but the schedule came out from today for next year already. And the reason why I mentioned T-Mobile Park is the Red Sox actually open up their first series of next season at T-Mobile Park. So that's pretty overall cool thing to kind of look at that way. But anyway, we'll talk really quick about this home run derby. And the home run derby to me specifically is one of my favorite events, not only just in baseball, but it's one of my favorite events. In sports. It's a really cool event that I've always loved to look at and watch. And I know that, they used to kind of have it in a way where the rules were a little different of, 10 outs, with each swing. If you didn't get a home run, if you got the home run and but there's a certain distance, you get, some added time. Now it's really just a matter of you get the amount of swings, right? And then uh it's timed up, but it's more timed and it's not by the outs. So yeah, they have about 3 minutes for each round. And personally for me, I mean, I'm fine with kind of either way. I'm fine with doing the old rule, which was the outs, right? The 10 outs. And then, I'm fine with the clock itself. So I'm fine with either. I know that some other people have different opinions on it. But quickly, just kind of going over some of the home run derby recap. Uh, some of the biggest storylines from it, and I'll kind of really quickly go through the participants again from this year's home run derby. So the participants that participated in this year's home run derby were Randy Rosarena, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Adley Rutschman, Mookie Betts, Adolis Garcia, Pete Alonso, Julio Rodriguez, and I believe that's it. And let me tell you, I mean, everybody essentially, maybe outside of Mookie, and Mookie's one of my favorite guys. Mookie only had 11 home runs in the whole entire thing. And I mean, Mookie, to me specifically, isn't really known as a power hitter. He's more of a gap to gap line drive type of hitter. But it seemed like kind of from like the overall coverage is that his wife really wanted him to do it, and it's just kind of something that he could put on his bucket list for his career, which I can respect. He's a guy specifically that I've just grown to love. And I know that he's not on my Red Sox anymore, but he's always going to be one of my favorite players ever to watch play. So, but if you look at this overall home run derby, the biggest guys that put on some show were Julio Rodriguez, because he was playing in his home ballpark in Seattle. And he was taking on Pete Alonso, who was a two-time home run derby champion in years past. He was playing against Julio Rodriguez, and actually, funny enough, those two guys, I believe, faced each other last year in the home run derby, and I believe Julio Rodriguez won that one. This year, they faced each other again, and Julio Rodriguez seems to now be Pete Alonso's kryptonite. Julio Rodriguez put up 41 home runs, I believe, in the first round. I do apologize if that was incorrect there for the amount, but it might have been one of the most impressive home run derby rounds I may have ever seen. I mean, the guy essentially, you know, there's really a strategy to this specifically. I mean, hitting it out is one thing, right? Consistently, but it's the pitchers too. There's a lot of pitchers in this home run derby that were throwing it. Some of them are outside, some of them are kind of middle, some are throwing it up, some are throwing it kind of down. But Julio Rodriguez is his pull side really is his power suit. And the pitcher that Julio Rodriguez had in this round specifically was just consistently throwing almost the exact same spot. And J Rod was just not missing it. He was just not missing it. And man, it just went on and on and on, where I was just everybody essentially on social media, guys like Patrick Mahomes, guys just like maybe like LeBron, some other guys were just complete I mean, my goodness. I mean, that's tough to do. Playing on a show, let alone the first round in your own park. I mean, he wasn't worried about the nerves. Heck, it maybe it was more of he was excited for this moment, and I think that it was really cool to see a guy like J Rod really put it on. I know that J Rod himself really hasn't had the biggest of the year first half, but I think specifically he some guys too uh also they benefit from the home run derby. And I think one guy specifically that's going to benefit from this is the guy who ended up winning this home run derby, and that was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I know that Vladdy himself, this first half, he was decent himself. I mean, if you look at his overall stats really quick, uh, I think that power-wise, he didn't have as many home runs probably that like he typically has for Guerrero Jr. type year. I'm just gonna quickly look it up myself. Uh, so he had 13 home runs in the first half. He batted 274 with 58 RBIs. So I mean, you look at it specifically that way, and it's decent. For a Toronto team that has a lot of heavy, bats specifically. I thought Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Really put on a show for the home run derby, and he actually was the guy that bounced Julio Rodriguez from moving on to the final round. And I think many fans specifically wanted to see the Julio Rodriguez in the final, but unfortunately came up a little bit short. So, this was a really good derby. Luis Robert also was a really good showing as well too. So, I mean, there was a lot of good guys for this specifics for this derby. Looks like I have John Alcorn
Hello.
that has joined here.
Can you hear?
John, yeah, I
Can
can
you,
hear you, John.
all right, perfect.
Yeah. So John, we're kind of go at least I'm kind of started at least now with the All-Star game and everything like that. But first of all, John, how are you doing tonight?
We're good, man. Like I said, it's coming up with towards the end of the bitter season of baseball, getting closer to the end. But it also makes me happy because I've kind of doubted every second since the Super Bowl ended. So obviously, it followed every story close. But just happy to be here, man, and happy to win my case and be right on everything and prove you right. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good.
Yeah. I know that for some of the stuff off the air about the football stuff, we're gonna get to that fun stuff during that time of our segment. But I was kind of talking, John, about the MLB All-Star game and the festivities because typically the All-Star game, it's usually only 2 to 3 days specifically. But this week they gave us, I believe, 3 to 4 days. So we're kind of in that stretch period where there's just like it's not really anything really to talk about, really, kind of outside of the recapping of the All-Star game stuff. And then I did also want to kind of talk about some of the first half kind of stuff that I know that on Sports Weekly they talked about, which I wasn't unfortunately able to make. But if you're able to get the chance to, looks like uh, maybe John's overall thing. John,
Sure.
are we able to get you here? No, it's all good. I was just
Okay.
um I was just kind of talking specifically about if you were able to kind of get the chance to watch any of the MLB All-Star Game stuff, if you're able to get the chance to watch the Home Run Derby uh and the All-Star Game. Looks like he's had some technical difficulties here and there, so I
Dude, I don't know
apologize.
what the fart is going on. I can't even turn on my dang camera tonight, so sorry about that.
It's all right. I was just wondering specifically if you really get the chance to watch any of the MLB All Star festivities. Kind of just whether it's the Derby, whether it's the actual game. I was kind of talking about the Derby before you came on. I was kind of just recapping it. And how did I don't know how much of a fan you love the Derby. I love it myself. I know that for like past years they used to do the rule of like the 10 outs. The last couple of years they're doing more like the times. So you kind of have a timed like clock limit, and they have like the extra bonus time if kind of a certain distance of your home runs and stuff like that. But just kind of going through some of the contestants, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. ended up winning it against Randy Rosarina in the final round. Just quickly, if you got the chance to watch it, if you have any overall reactions of that derby.
I feel like, and then obviously maybe it's just the All-Star game in general. Maybe it's just me, Ben, but I feel like they're instead of it being an All-Star game, just have those fun home run derby and those small miniature events because today's All-Star game or this past had a 3.9 in TV. Like I feel like a lot of times with baseball, they try to reinvent the wheel. I see a lot of people like I'm trying to get interested in baseball, like the home run derby, all those small events, make those even bigger because I feel like nowadays in sports who gives a rat's ass about like truly like unless an all-star meeting game has any meaning to it, Like, I feel like if there was more implications for the team during the season for draft picks, maybe people would be more interested. But I'll be honest, I'm not going to pretend like Skip Bayless and some other people on the broadcast networks. I did not watch it, so I'm not going to try and BS my way through it. Yeah, I didn't watch it. I'm sorry.
No, I know it's all good. I mean, I know for some people that are baseball specific, I mean, it's one of my favorite things to watch. But what I will have to say is, uh, if I had to kind of say one thing about the All Star game, and I like it, is the kind of the flipping of each, inning they flip certain each players. It's like this year specifically, a lot of stars, whether it was Aaron Judge, whether it was Mike Trout, a lot of guys specifically, whether they were injured, whether they just weren't specifically a lot of the stars from the American League were participating, so it kind of took out some of its juice. And we now have James Gonzalez. He has joined out to our program. James, hope you're doing well, my guy. We are kind of going through at least some of the MLB All-Star festivities and stuff like that, so you didn't really miss much. But how are you doing, my guy?
I am good. Hopefully you can hear me well, guys. I
can hear you well.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay cool. It's hard for a polar bear to stay cool in the desert. You know what I mean?
I'm a white guy in Houston, so I can't really relate to the polar bear part.
I'm over in Connecticut, or I think it's like typical New England. They usually, I'm gonna take a look really quick at my temperature here. It's 75 degrees. So I mean, it's could be worse at this point in time. But James, I was talking to John specifically. We were kind of discussing about a little bit of the All-Star festivities, and I was just going to ask you specifically. I know that you, Isaiah, and Moro talked about it on Sports Weekly, which I was unfortunately not enough to make. But just the overall Derby itself, I'm not sure who you picked to win it. I picked Luis Robert. Unfortunately, he got bounced, I believe, in the second round. But Vladdy Jr. put on a big show. Of course, congrats to him for winning it. I know that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. himself got the chance to win it in the back in the day, so it was really cool to kind of see the resemblance of the two there. But really, the stars of the show were two guys specifically. Adley Rutschman from the Orioles. John, of course, I'm not sure if you happen to know Adley, but he plays the Orioles catcher. He actually did something specifically in the home run derby that I personally I don't think I've ever seen, is that he went in essentially two rounds where because he's a switch hitter. So he essentially went the first round in lefty-handed, and then the second round he went right-handed. I mean, right-handed, he maybe even did better than his actual pull side, which was left-handed. So something impressive that I've never seen that was really cool. It would have been awesome to kind of see maybe Ali move on and maybe see if the overall back and forth of the city was going to work out. But Julio Rodriguez, I mean, he's the homegrown guy in the All-Star overall festivities in his own place. I mean, 40-plus home runs, taking down Pete Alonso, who's been a two-time champ for that. So, I mean, a couple of guys that really just stood out to me for that derby. But, James, I want to get to you really quick. What was your overall thoughts on that overall derby? And do you feel like specifically, really quick question too, do you think that the format of the timed is kind of your overall preference? Do you feel like they should bring back the 10 outs?
Man, I'll answer the one question right now. I got sick of not being able to see where like the home runs landed, all of them. Because you know how they had one camera on if the home run landed in center. Well, hey, one's landing in left almost at the same time, right? So I hate the split screen. You know how they have, the batter, and then they have, where the ball is going. And then I tried the StatCast angle of it on ESPN2, and you saw the batter hitting, but then you just saw the ball graphically where it landed. So I was torn between both. I had it on mute, I think, on ESPN. I don't want to hear Eduardo Perez. He's just annoying as hell. So
Who's worse, him or Berto McFarlane?
Yeah, any of those guys on ESPN.
We could talk about off the air about that, but I have my own thoughts on the upfield for sure.
Yeah. So
that's all good.
I miss being able to see like where all the home runs landed at one time. So I do miss the outs in that way, but the derby took forever in that way, from what I recall. That's why there's of course, now everything has time in baseball. But that's one thing maybe I would want to go back to is 10 outs or 7 or 8. I don't know. But I find myself watching that more attentively than the All-Star game. And then I was more interested in the Futures game. I still haven't seen it yet, though, because of work, but I will eventually get to it. But I want to see the new players coming up because we had some of them playing last year's Futures game that have been brought up by teams when you think about it. With the Angels, Zach Neto, and he was in the Futures game last year at Dodger Stadium. So I want to see if there's guys on other. You think of the Orioles last year; they had a bunch of Orioles in that Futures game, and now almost all of them have been called up this season.
Yeah.
So, man, I think the home run derby, it's fine how it is. I would just go back to slowing it down a bit. I had a Rosarena. I thought he was going to show out for the first time doing it, and he was like really campaigning himself to get into it, and he balled out. I was like, I couldn't believe he got into the final round because you mentioned Rochman was going off and J-Rod. I wondered too if anybody ever switched hit like Rochman did in a home run derby. I don't think that's ever happened. I've never seen it, to be honest with you. So that was cool to see, and the fact I think his father was pitching to him, that was pretty. Is that true? I forgot.
Yeah. Actually, thinking about it, yeah. Now that made it even more cool, I think, too.
And then the winner, of course, Vlad Jr. having the manager pitch to him because he does the batting practice pitches. Usually a manager, I remember Mike Scioscia with the Angels, he would have his fungo bat, and he would do that for the grounders and the pop-ups or whatever. So I kind of miss seeing that in batting practice. Of course, now you don't ever get to see the home teams in batting practice when you go. It's always a road team or nobody's practicing when you get to when they allow you in the gates. So, yeah, Vlad Jr. or Senior, won it in 2007 in San Francisco. And I thought that was the coolest thing because – and then Garrett Anderson won it in 2003 for the Angels. So that's been the Angel ones who have won it. I know Ohtani balled out in 21 with that. But I enjoyed the home run derby more than anything. The All-Star – you mentioned the All-Star game too, right?
I didn't really get the chance to talk a little bit about it.
Okay,
but,
I'll wait till you get there.
Yeah, I'll kind of talk about it really quick now. I'll say this specifically that I thought that kind of until like the ninth inning, there really wasn't a lot of juice really to it. I know that the American League didn't have Judge, they didn't have Trout. So you look at the overall lineup. I mean, no offense to guys like Austin Hayes and Josh Jung and Jonah Heim, but like you look back in the day in the All-Star game, and you remember you look at some of those lineups, you're like Derek Jeter, David Ortiz, A-Rod, just stud overall guys. And there were some guys that were off the bench, like in the National League, like Juan Soto, guys in the American League like Julio Rodriguez and Vlad. I'm looking at, thinking to myself, I'm just like, those guys could have been guys starting over some of the guys that theoretically were starting for the American League, which was absolutely wild to me. But I mean, that's another story for another day. But in all, I just don't really like specifically kind of the one pitch per inning type of thing. I think specifically for an all-star game is to kind of ride it out. And I mean, if you have to be declared as an all-star off the bench, yeah, you maybe can get an opportunity here and there, but at least to just be there. I don't know. It's just like, it just kind of feel like for me, I know it's more of an exhibition game. I understand that if you get there, you deserve to at least get some time to play. I just felt like kind of it was a little too much specifically for my liking of just having one pitcher after another pitcher after another pitcher for like an inning after inning. It just kind of takes a little bit out of it. But, it is what it is. Obviously guys don't want to get hurt out of it too. So, you look at it too, Luis Arias from the National League, complete stud. Of course, he's up to 400, really hitting this year. He had 2 hits in the game. National League, they broke their drought. They were in I think, an 8 to 9 year drought.
9.
They won 9, yeah. So they won 3-2 over the American League. The American League got a chance to potentially walk it off or tie it. It was going to potentially be a storybook ending with it was Craig Kimbrell on the bump in the 9th inning with 2 outs, and J-Rod was up. No, maybe it was been 2 outs and one guy on, and J-Rod could have walked it off, or he could potentially have tied it. They walked J-Rod, and J-Rod, Jose Ramirez, struck out, and that was that. So, I mean, outside the 9th inning where it had a little bit of drama as a whole, I mean, I was tuned in. I had the game on, but it's just like, it wasn't like an All-Star game specifically where I looked at them. Some of them you just look back and you're like, man, that was an amazing one. This one is just like the jerseys itself too. I know that a lot of people had their own opinions about the green jerseys. I kind of didn't mind it. Of course, like Seattle with like the green. I don't know. It's just it had a little bit of that overall kind of feeling there. But I don't know. It was if you gave like a grade for it, probably like a low, like high C plus, low B minus. It was just kind of there. I thought the Derby was better. I didn't really watch most of the Futures game, but I know Red Sox prospect Marcel Meyer was a top 5 in the pool. So, until the end, really, where the American got a chance to walk it off, I thought that as a whole, it was just kind of there. If you kind of ask me. So
that's right.
That's what she said.
Yeah. John, I'm not sure if you had the chance to watch any of the game outside of the Derby. I know you said you don't watch the Derby. James, were you able to get to watch any of the game?
Oh, yeah. I watched it all the way through. The jerseys were awful. I mean, I didn't mind the
hats were
American
okay.
League. The hat, it's their colors. Yeah, look, did the National League wear the black pants, or am I tripping?
I have to go back and look. Yeah,
well, I don't like the black pants. Like,
yeah,
I understood. You know what I miss, and this has been a topic ever since the game, pretty much, was when the players wore their team's jerseys. They did it in the home run derby, but it used to be reversed, if you recall. Like in the home run derby, they used to wear the team colors who was hosting the All-Star game. And it would be just like how the jerseys were this year for the All-Star game. So I do miss that part. Then you really get to know, like, if you're not a real fan of the game, if you barely watch, if it comes on like your local affiliate or whatever, and you don't follow the game as much like we do, you won't know by just watching that game who Luis Ariz plays for. You really have to either look it up or somehow match the hat with the jersey patch on the side of the logo. That's the only way you know if you're not a fan at all of the game. Back then, of course, you had everybody wearing their home or away jerseys, and it was so much easier to identify what player played with what team. So I missed that part of the All-Star game. You mentioned it. My closer came in for the Angels just in the 5th, I believe. He had a 1-2-3 inning, and that was it. It was real fast for Estevez. Ohtani didn't pitch at all. I know he led off.
Yeah. I think he didn't pitch because the start before the All-Star game, he had a potential blister, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that they were hesitant for him not to pitch in it. So that was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, the start before the last, he had a blister problem, and then it got worse. So it was, and then he starts Friday against Houston. So it's weird how his schedule is. And I didn't hear a lot of the broadcasts, but I kept hearing or reading, in one of the group chats I have with Halos in the Infield, my group that covers the Angels there. If y'all want to go check that out.
Check it out.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think every time he came up to bat or every time he was mentioned or interviewed, it was always about, hey, is he going to go somewhere else? Are you going to be here? And the red carpet show, I remember, they asked his translator Epi, and I think Ohtani says something different than what Epi said to the interviewer. It was like only time will tell, but I think Shohei said something else. So you have that manipulatism with the broadcast. I know it's a topic for sure because the trade deadline's at the end of August or end of July. So I know that's a topic and that's fine, but don't go overboard on that crap, please. And I know I'm biased because I'm an Angel fan, so it hurts kind of more. Okay, yeah. And then the other gripe I had was, okay, did you see, I think in the 6th or 7th inning, they had the 4 pregame show guys and postgame show guys sitting right next to the American League dugout. They had them, it was Burkhart, Jeter, Boppy, and A-Rod. They were all sitting right there, and they kept on getting questions back and forth from Smoltz and Davis, and they were, and it was kind of cool. But I think for that whole inning, they should have just stayed with the 4 guys down there. Had their own little broadcast for that inning. Because believe it or not, I watched.
Go ahead. I was gonna say something.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was gonna say because I had my thought. It was the same point in time of that game where they were having their popcorn and they were talking more about having the popcorn more than the actual game itself. Sorry, I want to just mention that real quick.
Yeah, no, I was going to mention Poppy was in a lot of popcorn and A-Rod joined in. And Jeter, you could tell he's kind of like Kobe in a way where he's just serious all the time until, he cannot be, if he's working with kids or whatever. But you can tell Jeter, he's not really comfortable yet in the television role, but he's getting there. It's only his first year or so. I think his first month when you think about it. But I would have loved to see those 4 guys just have an inning to themselves and really explain, like, okay, well, this pitcher can do this, and we're sitting right near. So we know he has this pitch. This batter has, if he throws this pitch, he's going to go after it. I would have loved to see the player's perspective. I know Smoltz is up in the booth. We have those 3 players down there. They're the 3 winners down there. I know Smoltz is a winner too, but I would have loved to see or hear from those guys because that's the only time I had it unmuted when those guys were talking. And it was really fun. But then there was a long delay or something, and they just went away from him, and it was just really bad. And then it's not bad for him, but for Elias Diaz, who won the MVP for hitting that whole game clinching home run. It's great and all. I mean, he was a lone Colorado Rocky represented. He was in the last place Rockies, which is fine and all. He had some clutch home runs against the Padres and Angels. So I've heard of him. But, excuse me, I guarantee 95% of the audience that watch doesn't know who the hell Diaz is. They don't watch Colorado Rocky baseball. I think the only time, and Ben, you would know this, the only time the Rockies have been truly relevant on a national stage was when you guys swept them in 2007. That's the only time that we were talking Rocky baseball. They went to a wild card game, I think, in 2017. They had Todd Helton, Larry Walker, whatever. Jeff Francis, whomever you want to talk about. But the fact that he won the All-Star Game MVP award, that's fine and all. And, I know he was emotional about it. But it would have been cool to see. I know Juan Soto, you mentioned, he came off the bench and played. It would be cool if you could bring players back in. You know what I mean? Like, have it like a little league game. And in certain situations, if you could have a pinch hitter, let's say Ohtani could pitch hit in that 9th inning. Imagine having that for the All-Star game. I think that would be cool. Now, Ben, I want to ask this, and I thought about this. You know how the NBA has that All-Star draft? Do you think MLB will ever get so desperate for the All-Star game, for the ratings to go up? Do you think they'll ever put like 2 captains for each league and then have them pick players like it's the Sandlot? Or is there too many players to do that?
Sorry, I was unmuted. I personally think they're not. I think that it's just probably too many players. I mean, it's a good idea. I think specifically the other thing you mentioned is a really good thing because John was actually mentioned before he came on about the I believe the viewership. It was really down this year. I mean, if you look at it specifically, I mean, I don't blame a lot of the audience that is either very just kind of baseball, just you don't really follow, but you'll kind of just tune in here and there. But like hardcore, unless you're a hardcore baseball fan like myself or James or anyone else, I mean, you turn it on, you're just like, who the hell? Pardon my language. Who the hell are after these guys? Essentially, second half of this game. So I mean, you look at it specifically, right in the bottom of the ninth inning, right? Julio Rodriguez was up, and it was actually going to be a really cool storyline if he was able to make something happen. But you know, like you're saying, to maybe bring a guy off the bench that maybe played already, and Shohei Ohtani maybe pitched a couple innings, right? If he was able to pitch, and then he never got the chance to bat until the last inning, you know, you're hearing all these fans of Shohei coming to Seattle, all this stuff, like, which by the way is not happening. He's coming to somewhere else, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about after one of my segments, because I didn't really get the chance to talk about it on Sports Weekly last week with you guys, because I wasn't on. But yeah, I mean, I think that the draft itself, kind of like the NBA, James, I don't think specifically it would work. I don't think the union and ownership probably wouldn't want to do it, but I wouldn't be opposed to the other one. They just kind of have to really kind of, at least I know John was talking about maybe just taking the All-Star game out as it is, and potentially just kind of having like some smaller other type of games on top of the Derby, to kind of keep people engaged. I felt like specifically you probably looked at between the Derby and the game, the ratings are probably a lot better for the Derby, right? Because people are kind of just in tune, any type of time. And I mean, you look at that final round for the Derby, Randy Rosarina only lost by 2 home runs. I mean, I think he went to he was going to be really close to a swing off, but he was within range of where people are talking about, oh, it's going to be a tall task for Randy because of kind of who he is and the overall hitter he is. But he was close. I mean, like you said, James, he put on a really good show for that. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of really everything I have for the All-Star Game festivities.
It's because do you mind if I add one more thing about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's because baseball doesn't give a damn about the fans at all. Because you keep trying to come up with new things over and over, and you lose your identity. Baseball is supposed to be about the fans. You try with the pitching with the clock and making the game go faster. It might take it still cost $200 to $300+, which is freaking insane depending on where you sit, and adding all these different things like who the heck is this? I'm like, dude, I don't give a damn. You know, why do fans watch baseball? I feel like these sports industries don't go to social media. Where do people talk about sports and baseball? It is Twitter. It is Threads, because who cares about Twitter anymore? Or Instagram. All those people, you go into the chats, you go to Discords, and like you keep trying to reinvent a block of the slice of bread. It's a slice of damn bread. It's baseball. Why do people love baseball? Like this is not just baseball, man. This goes to, I feel like, football, basketball, where there's no ramifications for these all-star games, for the Pro Bowl games, to the point where why we wouldn't would we have discussed this 5 or 10, 15 years ago about not having an all-star game, not having a Pro Bowl game or anything like that? Probably not. But like JJR was saying, adding in all these different things, why? Are you trying to piss off people? Are you trying to get people like myself who want to go to baseball games, but if it's cut by 30 to 45 minutes, and my ticket's over $200, what do I have incentive to go? Because even if my ticket's like $100, $200, okay, it's a couple hours, I'm going to have a good time. Cool, have a couple of beers. You get maybe a beer and half a chili hot dog before you go shit yourself in the bathroom, and then the game's over. Like, stop ruining sports. Damn it, Robert. Like, come on. Sorry.
Hey, can I mention, I think, one couple of things. I remember competitions, right? In the 1989 All-Star Game, I think there was a catcher's throwing to second competition. And Benito Santiago, I think, won it. I know that won't be a thing. And then I think in the Japanese league, they have a bunting competition, which I watch. I really like it. And it's a dying art, of course, with all the analytics here in America. But I would watch the bunting competition. I think that's cool. You have to have an all-star game. But from that, it's like not much you can do. You can hype up the game, hype up the red carpet moments and all that, and the softball game, the celebrity softball game, all you want. But baseball only goes so far.
Damn, Philip Rivers, your 10th kid already, man. Come on, shut that. Sorry, I need to put myself.
We could talk about that down the rest of the show if we have some time. The one thing too about the All-Star festivities, James and John, I was thinking about it before the game, about the All-Star game. Did they ever kind of like talk really about the pitch clock situation? I know they really kind of emphasized that kind of during the regular season, but like my brother was even asking me about that before the game, about do they implement that for the actual All-Star game?
I didn't see it for the All-Star game, and I hope it doesn't happen in the postseason. I really don't. I would hate for a big, like we all feared at the beginning of the year when the pitch clock was going on and there were violations in spring training and early in the regular season. I do not want to see it in the postseason. I don't want to see a pivotal moment come down to seconds. Baseball should never have time. Now, the pitch clock has been good, but in key moments where divisions are won, pennants are won, I don't want to see a pitch clock. And it was good that they didn't have it in the All-Star game.
Yeah, because when I was watching it, I was even thinking to myself, I'm just like, I just feel like I'm watching a game like as usual, right? Because they obviously without the pitch clock. But I look at it still. I agree to disagree with you, James, specifically on the pitch clock specifically. Of course, I don't want a game like baseball and a game which I absolutely love to get ruined by something like that. But if I look at a devil's advocate that way as well, too, is if they want to do it that way, and of course we are essentially, us fans have to watch that way specifically. If you're a player itself, I would say specifically if you're essentially you don't get the batter's box, that's on you, because essentially you've kind of looked throughout the whole entire regular season, right? And essentially you pretty much have had all these at bats and stuff like that, and then essentially you want to argue essentially in the postseason. I mean, sorry, that's on you at this point in time, because you've gone through months now, and it's obviously that's something that, of course, you essentially probably should know at that point in time. So I agree essentially in the fact of like, yes, I don't want anything to get ruined for a game of baseball which shouldn't be timed. But if you want to do it with these rules and specifically this point in time too, it's another thing of, well, you shouldn't blame anyone else but yourself if you get to a point in time where you get out, that way because of a pitch clock situation. So, yeah, I want to get pretty much through that. Let's kind of now talk through some stuff from the first half of the season. I know that from Sports Weekly, you guys talked a little about that, but I do want to get to some of that myself and kind of get my overall thoughts. I do want to get to a first half AL and an NL MVP, so I want to get to that really quickly. But just overall, just your thoughts, John. I guess I'll start with you in terms of, I know that you're a Padres fan, so of course your first half maybe was a little bit more underwhelming than potentially projected. Now, of course, that things can really change in the second half. We'll just talk about it a little bit, but just the overall thoughts on the first half of the season. If there is stuff that you really liked, of course, with the new rules or anything like that. But I'll give it to you, my guy. What do you think?
Honestly, I feel like I'm jinxing the Padres. Ever since I started watching baseball, I'm the Isaiah of Padre fans. And I mean it's in only one way. Not because I'm saying they're going to win every single game and go 162-0. Every time I talk about them and get excited, it goes downhill. So if Padre fans don't want pitchforks down where I live, I mean, honestly, like, I didn't watch it. Like, I've been so busy. Work's been insane. We've been streaming pretty much every day on Twitch, so it's been crazy. So I didn't watch it. I'm trying to pull something out of my butt, but unlike Skip Bayless, I'm not going to make personal digs at someone.
All right. Yeah, I mean, you'll get your Padres. They're 43-47. I actually put them for one of the more disappointing teams of the first half. I mean, they put a lot of money into that team, and I'm not doing it to essentially copy your team out, John. Trust me, I love Xander. He's a former Red Sox of mine, so I actually really want that team to perform. But I also have to kind of see it as it is myself too. I mean, your team specifically is kind of in the same boat as the Mets. You know, I was going to talk about the Mets as well too. I mean, they put so much money into that. And it's still mind-boggling to me about where they are and where they stand. But I'll take it over to James. James, what's your thoughts in the first half of the overall season so far? Or I guess you could say into the All-Star break.
Well, you meant the MVP candidates, right?
Yeah, I was going to get into that really quickly, kind of after your overall thoughts on the first half of the season, if there's anything that caught your attention.
So, yeah, obviously the best team in the NL has to have the MVP, and Ronald Acuna Jr. is that guy. Unfortunately, he's going to beat out Corbin Carroll, who's been awesome for Arizona. One of the surprises, definitely in the league. Maybe the most surprising, the good surprising team for the National League is the Diamondbacks. I know they just lost first place, but they still have wild card aspirations. I think the story in the National League, though, is because we know Acuna Jr. is going to ball out, right? But Luis Ariz, I mean, you know, dude, we didn't even know who he was, honestly. He was playing in Minnesota. He was a good first baseman, all-star, could hit, you know, but we didn't know he could hit this good for average. I mean, and I'm going to get, you know, criticism for this. But I thought about this, and then Will Clark and Eric Burns have a show on Instagram, I think it is, or wherever the show is. I bet you can find it anywhere. But he was comparing Ariz to the way he's hitting to Tony Gwynn. Both are from the left side. Both have simple strides, you know, swinging. Both have simple ideas of how to hit. They go against the grain. When you think about it, Ben, everybody hits for home runs nowadays. Ariz is out here. He's just sprinkling home run, or like not like everybody else. He's hitting singles, doubles. He's just finding grass, hitting them where they ain't, to a 383 average. And I think it's just very cool. And everybody should be like him in a way. If you don't have the power, be a singles, doubles hitter. Be a line drive hitter like he is. You know, go against the grain. And I credit Ariz for that. And Miami is in one of the wild card spots, which is just crazy to me to think. Maybe all that young talent's coming up for Miami, and they're doing well. For the American League, you have all those surprises with more or less Baltimore. I knew they were going to be good, but I didn't know they would be this good. The Rays, of course, I was wrong on. I didn't think they would be as good as they are now. There's other surprises like Texas. You know, I know Houston's going to eventually catch him for the West. But Texas will be one of the wild card spots. Cleveland eventually will take the Central. But, man, Cincinnati, I'm really happy for them. Because the last few years, you know, 2020 had their last postseason berth. But the real one was, 2013 against the Pirates, I think, as a wild card. They've been suffering for a long time, other from 2020. So it's good to see them and L.A. De La Cruz just opening up everybody's imaginations. The way he runs bases, the way he hits, the way he fields and throws the ball over at like 98 miles per hour to the first baseman. This dude is amazing. And he's only, 22 or whatever he is, and
I'll double check, yeah.
And he's just awesome right away. And then not only that, though, they have so many other great young Reds coming up too. McLean, Benson. Yeah. They have so much coming for him offensively. Hunter Green got hurt, but I think he'll be back in August. He's one of those pitchers that can light it up on the radar gun. So I love what Cincinnati is all about now. And I know they're holding on to a one-game lead on Milwaukee. They finished with Milwaukee for the All-Star break. and now they play him in Cincinnati Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I can't wait to see that series. I'm going to watch that more than the Angels-Astros series because I want to see if these Reds are for real or if they're going to peter out like the Pirates. The disappointments, of course, are the Cardinals, the Mets, the Padres, but they're coming. They just have to win, and everybody has to lose basically for them. The White Sox I knew were going to be bad, and I know they're selling. The same with Oakland. And then in the AL, I think it's clear cut for the MVP, Shohei Ohtani, because of the wins he has and because he leads the team in almost every category, literally. I mean, average, hits, RBIs, home runs, wins as a pitcher. He just does it all, and that's why he's getting so much money, or he will in the offseason. So this first half, it's been like, hey, let's give a shout-out to the surprises. Let's look down on the disappointments. But knowing that the game is in great hands with all these young players coming up, like the Orioles have, the Reds have, the Diamondbacks have to a lesser extent, it's going to be a fun time. You know, this second half will truly show, okay, maybe the young guys will peter out and the veteran guys will step in and lead their team to the playoffs. We'll see, though. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I'm going to be fortunate enough to actually tonight, we're going to have a special guest. Isaiah's going to be coming on soon, but we're going to also have a special guest that I'm a part of a Twitter group, and he is a Red Sox fan. So during the team reports, we'll quickly talk with Noah. We'll see in terms of when he's going to be coming on, but he talks everything about Red Sox and, baseball himself. He's really getting knowledgeable. But before we have him come on, when he's coming on, I'll really quick it over to I know that John talked about really quick his Padres. In terms of my Red Sox myself, and before Noah comes on, I'm not sure when he's going to be coming on or not. The Red Sox, I feel like, they're 48 and 43. They're in last place, but last place in the AL East. I mean, that's essentially kind of like, heck, they'd be in first place essentially in the AL Central. I mean, it's essentially in a stacked division with the Rays, the Orioles, the Jays, and the Yankees. And the Yankees and the Red Sox are both each of those two teams are right outside looking at the wild card. So, I mean, that should say it all. You look at it from that overall standard. In terms of just the team itself, I felt like they overachieved, but they have a lot of good pieces, to look forward to. Brian Bayo really stood out to me. Masataka Yoshida, the guy that they paid a lot of money to in the offseason, a guy that a lot of executives thought they had an overpay for. You look at his overall stats; he's batting over 300. Yeah, he might not be a massive power hitter, but he essentially could put him in different parts of the lineup, and he's done an absolutely fantastic job. I do think that they should get some pitching if they're going to look at the deadline, and I'll talk some about some of the trade deadline in the next couple of weeks. But if they really want to be buyers, that's what they have to do. Is they have to really stack up some pitching. Gary Whitlock is down, Tanner Houck is down. So they have James Paxton, who did really well. That was one of my surprises. If I look at superlatives from our actual team, he was a massive surprise. Brian Bayo was great. They brought in Justin Turner. He had a really good first half. So, I mean, they're in last place, but they're right outside looking, and, they're going to be kind of right there. And they got the Cubs coming up. They had Isaiah's A's, and then they have I think kind of after the fact. They don't have the worst July the rest of the way. Oh, they have the Mets, and then they have home against the Braves until they have their West Coast trip. So, I mean, you look at it specifically until the All-Star, the trade deadline, they still have kind of a way that they can find a way to kind of piece it up until, the trade deadline. So I really want to quickly kind of talk about that because I know that I wasn't able to get to kind of talk about it during my team report last week on Sports Weekly. The overall teams, AL and NL MVPs. I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, first half, he was absolutely fantastic. He put up absolutely monstrous numbers. AL MVP, James, are going to like this one. I'm going to go Shohei Ohtani. I mean, I know that it's cliche to think, but, he is just absolutely out of this world type of talent. I mean, he's playing essentially better year after year. I mean, you look at his overall numbers, and he's essentially doing this in a year, specifically in a contract year, where everybody's going to want his services. Now, essentially, kind of what you're looking at now, and I want to ask, I know I don't know specifically in terms of John if you've been following, Shohei's overall, numbers in terms of the last couple of years, but as of right now, Shohei Ohtani, he has. Let me see the first half in terms of home runs. I think around
31.
31.
31.
So 31. So if you look at it this way, I mean, Aaron Judge had 61, 62. There's a possibility that Shohei Ohtani could break, Aaron Judge's year in a contract year, which is crazy because Aaron Judge essentially last year was in a contract year for him for free agency, and he's doing the exact same thing. So I got to give to Ohtani for AL MVP. So my first half, let's see, disappointments. I'm going to go with the Mets and the Padres. Cardinals is a really good pick as well too. My surprises are Texas. I thought that Texas was a massive surprise. I know that they put in some money in, but they're doing a lot better than I thought. The Marlins are really a surprise to me too. I thought that the Mets, since they declined, the Marlins really had a good first half. You could argue with the Reds as well too. I mean that the Reds, if you ask me if the Reds are in first place by the first half, I'd probably call you crazy. So that was really massive. And then disappointments, I don't know. I mean, the White Sox, I guess you could say, but I felt like with their coaching and kind of their off the antics, I still kind of I'm not surprised also in that case too. So, yeah, I mean, we'll be curious to kind of see the second half kind of as a whole. We'll see specifically. We'll kind of start going into the second half, kind of the schedule, and then we'll get into the Ohtani stuff. We'll see specifically if Noah happens to come back on or not. But quickly, the second half of the season, guys, starts tomorrow. So buckle up. We're now back into the second half, which is very exciting. The Red Sox will take on the Cubs. The Giants are taking on the Padres. The Marlins are taking on the Orioles. The White Sox against the Braves. A lot of interleague games start off, which I love to see. D-backs can be starting against the Blue Jays. Brewers and Reds, which I know you mentioned about James. Dodgers are taking on the Mets. Maybe this is a series which can get the Mets going. They're playing against a really good Dodgers team. The Rays are taking on the Royals. Nats are taking on the Cardinals. Guardians against the Rangers. Yankees are in Colorado. Twins are at the Oakland A's. The Tigers are at the Mariners, so the Mariners don't have to move. And then the Astros are taking on the Angels. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to make you crazy go laugh there, James. But but yeah, that's the schedule for this weekend series for sure. I guess I'm going to keep this schedule, this question for next week. But now, James, this is going to be a really cool thing for you and John. You can make this pitch for your Padres, but I don't think you guys did this on Sports Week last week. And I thought of something specifically where we're going to talk about the Shohei Ohtani stuff because I know that kind of really kind of took over the stuff from this All-Star overall week. A lot of people were asking questions on media day and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have 5 teams for you guys right now that I believe are gonna be the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes. And I want to ask you specifically for me after specifically I go through the 5 teams. If you feel like there's any other teams I might have left out, how logically these teams are, but obviously hear me out on these 5 teams. I'm going to think about it, look away in terms of proximity, money, and stuff like that. So I'm going to have the Mets at number 5. I think the Mets with the massive owner, in a big market, I think that's essentially something where Cohen potentially could pounce. Number 4 is the Mariners. I think that the Mariners, they're on the West Coast. I think it could bring a massive figure there to Seattle. Number 3, John, I think your Padres. I don't think that the Padres are worried about big contracts. If we saw this past year, I have them at 3. Number 2, I have the Giants. They missed out on Judge last year. And my number 1 is the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it looks like actually that we are having Isaiah. Isaiah is joining us. Noah, I'm not sure if he'll be able to get the chance to come back on, but Isaiah, we are still actually on the baseball segment we're talking about. We're actually pretty much through. We kind of talked about our first half, some stuff that you guys talked about from Sports Weekly last week. But before we get into more of the Shohei stuff, Isaiah, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, guys. I actually flew up to Seattle earlier in the day, just to get some donuts and some food, and then flew back down just a few hours ago. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was a fun little day trip, so that was pretty good. Got to go to the future home of Drew Lock and just absolutely look at that beautiful stadium. But yeah, it was a fun trip. I wish I could have gone there for the All Star game. Like that would have been
I was gonna ask
super.
you, did you see any of the All Star stuff still kind of around when you were there? You probably did a little bit.
I saw a poster of the All Star Game logo that was by the Pikes Place Market up there in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
That was
That's
like the
cool.
only thing I pretty much saw. They did have some Mariners stuff in the airport, but that was kind of about it.
Okay.
Also,
Uh,
Drew Lock is as relevant as Young Jeezy is in the hip hop game right now. So
Please, please.
we're gonna have a really good fun talking football later on. It's gonna get a little. We're gonna have some fun. Let's just say that. But Isaiah, we're kind of talking about currently one of the biggest things outside the Derby and the game is the Shohei Ohtani talk that happened kind of really throughout the whole entire week. And I just mentioned to James and John, essentially my 5 teams are Shohei Ohtani, and then James, hear me out on this. We're going to essentially each of us give us our Ohtani pitch to our prospective teams, and essentially how we kind of feel about these pitches. So, essentially, obviously, with you being an Angels fan, James, a pitch for you to obviously to keep him to stay. I don't know if you want to do that, but as us not non-Angel fans, I would obviously love to hear our point of view about that. I'm not doing this specifically to make you potentially cry or get you upset, but essentially this is for something in my case where I would love to make my daily pitch, and I won't have to make you be hurtful again after. I'll give you that over as a deal.
Yo, Siri, how do you say please in Japanese? Please. For 500 million, nothing less, nothing more. We need you. You're the only one here that cares. You're the only one that wants to win, allegedly. I know your back is hurting now, and it's going to hurt more carrying the team. But you never have to worry about someone stealing your spotlight. And then you'll never have to be in the spotlight if you continue to be an Angel, because no one cares about them. So if you want your little safe space, stay with us. We'll give you almost whatever you want. Our owner is an idiot. You know that. He rarely comes around. Smells like whiskey, right? You remember him? Yeah. We don't want you going to LA, the real LA team. But I know eventually you'll go there because they have all the money. You don't like New York. You don't like pressure. You don't want to go there. Seattle's okay, but no one hits there. Cano went there and petered out, of course. Adrian Beltre, of course, before that. We want you to stay. The only reason the seats are full at the Big A right now is because of you. Nobody else. Mike Trout, he's almost a has-been. You know that because he hits in between you. So you know that, hey, he's probably going to strike out or ground out or fly out. Meanwhile, you're the best pitcher on the team. You're the best hitter on the team. We need you, please. How do you say please in Japanese? That would be my pitch to his translator.
All right, that was good. I respect that. I respect that you went first and you gave it your speech. Now, James, do you also want to give your 5 teams for the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes?
I was kind of disappointed you didn't mention the Angels on your list.
Well, I was mentioning the 5 teams, of course, if it wasn't the Angels. I probably should have mentioned the Angels. If I wanted to put them in, they'd probably be my top 3.
Well, no, if he is wanting to win, the logical thing would be not to go back to the Angels, you know? I just crap on my team. I don't care. They suck.
I was trying to make you feel good, James. That's all.
Yeah, our record says
Otherwise,
our record says the opposite, of course. Dude, I remember being like 7-8 games ahead of or above 500. I'm like, okay, this is good. Ever since then, fall. Okay, I pretty much have the same top 5 as you. I don't have the Yankees, even for a trade. I know that's been going around. But yeah, the Mets are 5. What was your 4th again? I'm sorry.
The Mariners.
Oh, no. Okay. I don't have the well, no. Okay. Hold on. The Giants are 5th. The Mets are 4th. I just don't think he would go to that market. I know the owner wants to spend, but he spent a lot on Scherzer and Verlander. That's going to hurt that. The 3rd would be San Diego. I should put him as 5th, though, because right now they don't have any TV money coming in. They lost their network, Bally Sports. So they don't have that TV money coming in. So that might mean they might have to get rid of some players in a crazy world. They just signed Bogarts, that big-ass deal.
Well, I'm also thinking the way if they moved on from Soto, because there's been a lot of talks of potentially Soto moving on. The Padres, I wouldn't be shocked if they went after get a massive fish again, like Shohei. So, and obviously you keep in consideration some, Padres could be a name.
And because they're not afraid to go out and get whomever. They've traded their farm system for a couple of players, stupidly. But they went for it after a decade of going for nothing. So, yeah, Padres 3, the Angels 2, and then sadly, which I really think he's going to go to the Dodgers. He wants to win. I mean, the Dodgers, their 3 initials.
Sorry, I just reacted to a rumor that I saw for the Red Sox. I'm more excited for it. I'll say it after we talk.
Right. Instead of LAD, their initials should be WIN. So all they do is win since 2012. They've been to every playoff since then. So I know Ohtani wants to win. You saw that in the WBC when he won for Team Japan, getting the last out, of course, on Mike Trout. So I think eventually he's going to go to Dodgers. But that's my top 5.
Isaiah, I'll give it to you, my guy. I'm going to be very curious to see your pitch for Shohei Ohtani to go to the Oakland Athletics. Sorry. I'm going to have to probably say Vegas now. Sorry, Isaiah. I don't want to go too far about that. And then the Phillies. Now, the Phillies are actually a team specifically. I was reading a video on MLB Network. The Phillies could be a potential rental team if Shohei Ohtani got traded around the trade deadline. So, Isaiah, I want to give it to you, my guy. I'm really curious to hear your pitch on the A's and the Phillies for Shohei Ohtani.
Well, let me start with the Phillies because I need a moment to try to conjure something up about the A's. I mean, it's like you asking Washington National fans to try to get something to try to campaign to get Shohei Ohtani. But in terms of the Phillies, this is why Shohei should go to the Phillies. Shohei should go to the Phillies because if Shohei went to the Phillies, it would be like the 1994 U.S. men's basketball Olympic dream team, but in baseball version. That's what it would be. I mean, think about the lineup, man, of Ohtani, Harper, Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber. That lineup would be the most ridiculous lineup ever formed in the game of baseball. And then you look at the pitching staff, you add Ohtani with Nola, with Wheeler. I mean, that pitching staff would be ridiculous. Like the Phillies would be they would be like the LeBron, Chris Bosh, D Wade, Miami Heat of baseball if that ended up happening. And that's why Shohei should go to the Phillies, because Philly breeds superstars. Philly is a market where superstars come and get enhanced. And you look at guys look at Jalen Hurts. He came into the Eagles. He wasn't anything beforehand, and all of a sudden, boom, he's a superstar in the NFL. You look at, guys like what's it called? Guys like Joel Embiid wasn't really. I mean, he was good at Kansas, but he wasn't superstar level. And boom, he ends up going and being the superstar of the Sixers. So Ohtani would thrive in Philly, especially with that lineup. I mean, I think that imagine a scenario where in that like fully stacked lineup, you have Shohei Ohtani hitting number 7 in the order with how, or you have a guy like JT Realmuto or Trey Turner hitting 8th in that lineup. That's how ridiculously stacked that lineup is. So Shohei, if you want to, if you know why you should go to the Phillies, you should go to the Phillies because you going to the Phillies would equal automatic championship. That's exactly why you should go to the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies would score like 12 runs a game. The pitching staff would probably throw shutouts every single game. Yeah, I mean, he should go to Philly because he would win that ring that James's Angels sadly are lacking. And come to the city of brotherly love because you will absolutely be loved in the city of brotherly love.
Isaiah, the dream team was 92, bro.
92.
How are you going to compare 11 Hall of Famers and 1 Christian Laettner to the Phillies lineup with Shohei Ohtani? That is just stupidity.
That's not stupidity. You have all these guys in the Phillies lineup, top to bottom, that are one day going to be future Hall of Famers.
Alec Bohm is a Hall of Famer. Are you kidding me?
Well, hey, he could be a star. I mean, he's doing well right now.
He's a Hall of Famer, bro.
Nick Castellanos is an all-star.
Stop.
He's an all-star.
Cap.
And then about the Oakland A's. Oh God.
You don't have to do the A's. I feel bad. I feel bad in that way. We actually have some I don't say some breaking news, but some latest news about the A's, which I wanted to get into as well.
They traded the mascot.
Didn't the mascot not show up at the All-Star game?
I wouldn't either.
No, we're going to talk about a little bit. There's some potential news. The mayor in Oakland is trying to keep the A's specifically and potentially move their overall team to a potential new ballpark. They're talking with I think the MLB and the union about that in Manfred. I'll talk about that maybe next week because I do want to get into some football stuff. But let's get to my overall pitch, James. Obviously, from you with an Angel fan, I want you, after this, to potentially give you which pitch do you think is better between me and Isaiah if the Angels didn't want to, keep him. So, Shohei Ohtani, the Boston Red Sox would love to have your services. One, because of you come to the Northeast, you go to the City of Champions, not LA, Isaiah. The City of Champions in Boston, where we had 12 championships since 2000. He would actually play with one of his best friends in Masataka Yoshida, who is from the Japanese World Baseball Classic team. And Shohei, I know that you can actually kind of experience, all 4 seasons, right? So you can be warm one part of the season, you could be kind of cold, you can go out skiing, you could our New England summers, you could, taste the chowder. You could taste over in Boston, you could taste the chowder. You could taste the lobster over in Maine. You can go down to Cape Cod. We have all this fun stuff over in Cape Cod. Oh, and yeah, by the way, we have New York City, which is within 2-hour distance away from where you potentially could play, aka the biggest city essentially outside of Los Angeles. So you kind of essentially saw that same overall feel just in the other coast. So give it a chance, can't hurt. And so you play against Aaron Judge, a couple more times a year during the season. Boston, essentially, we would love to have you. And, oh, by the way, too, another thing about our athletes, we go support our other teams that are in the city. Our fans are passionate. We care. And we would love to give you that $500 to $600 million check to have this two-way phenom superstar come to our team and potentially maybe the biggest Boston star maybe since Tom Brady. And I'm not joking about that. So, Shohei Ohtani, we love to give you a blank check, my guy. come to the City of Champions, come to Boston. You could play again with Masataka Yoshida. You could play again with some other guys. Japanese in the overall demographic, I guess you could say, area. We have a decent amount over in Boston, I guess you can say. So we'll give it to you. That's my take. Now, James, who do you think had the overall better pitch?
I think it's clear-cut favorite. Ben gets that. He had relevant points, unlike Isaiah. Just nothing out of the world points. Better fans, most likely. Better, I think better advertisement money too. When you think about it, being so close to that number one media market like New York City as Boston is. ESPN will talk about you more than they will now.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, too, the hub of ESPN is in Connecticut. So,
right.
Essentially, if you ever wanted to do that, too, we also have that, too. Sorry, Isaiah.
I mean, Philadelphia smells. Boston doesn't. So, I would give this to Ben.
Isaiah, I do want to rank before we get into one more thing about Ohtani, before we get into our baseball or football stuff, because I will save the second half of the season stuff for my next show. Rank your, what's your 5 teams? Wait.
There he is.
Isaiah, do we have it? Okay. When you coming on, quickly, Isaiah, your 5 teams for Shohei Ohtani. Now, I mentioned this to James. I have the Mets as 5. I have the Mariners as 4. The Padres as 3. The Giants at 2. And the Dodgers at 1. What are your 5 teams if you had to pick for right now for Shohei Ohtani's services?
All right, I'm assuming that he doesn't get traded and he's a free agent this offseason. So I would say this. My top 5 list of teams for Shohei, I think you got to start with number 5, the Los Angeles Angels. Yeah, like there's a chance he might go back, but it's a very, very, very slim chance, James. I think it depends if the Angels make the playoffs or not this year. If they're able to somehow, some way, their July schedule is rough. I mean, I looked at it; it's extremely rough. If they're able to somehow, some way sneak into the playoffs, I think they have a little bit of a shot. But if they don't make the playoffs, they're all but dead. So you definitely got to put the Angels there. Like James said, the fan base loves him. He's their franchise player right now. You get to play with Mike Trout. You get to play with Anthony Rendon. You got
oh yay him.
You completely forgot about it. That's how irrelevant he is. And then you can also play with who I think is truly the budding superstar of the Angels, and that is Mickey Moniak. And
Shut up.
That is true. But the Angels are a possibility, but they're like
James can't win right now.
number 5. They're number 5. They're literally like out of the realm, or nearly out of the realm of possibilities. Number 4 on the list, the New York Yankees, because people are like, Shohei's going to be like, oh, yeah, I don't want to play for New York. I don't want to play for New York. But it's the allure of the Yankees. Like, if he gets traded, right, let's say the Angels make him available, the Yankees would be on line 1 to get Shohei. And the thing is, I think, like, if Shohei spent a half a year in the Bronx, people that go to the Bronx, they don't leave the Bronx. That's the thing. So I think that if he did get traded to the Yankees, I don't think he would leave New York, especially with that lineup. You would add Shohei, DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, Josh Donaldson, Anthony Rizzo, Anthony Volpe's there as well. Like that lineup. Giancarlo Stanton as well. Yeah, that lineup would be stacked, and that pitching staff. He'll be slotted right in there next to Garrett Cole, and then you could add Anthony Rendon in the back end. I mean, that team would give the Yankees definitely number 28 World Series championship. So I'll put them as 4. Number 3 on the list. the Padres, just because the Padres are from the West Coast and they're always trying to go out with that superstar. It doesn't matter if it affects chemistry or not, or if it costs a lot of money to get them. You know, the Padres are always in the mix to get that superstar and to get that big name. So I wouldn't be surprised if AJ Preller casts a big net to get Shohei Ohtani this upcoming season or off season. Number 2 on my list, and this is, I think, will shock a lot of you guys.
Stop.
It's not the Phillies.
Let's hear it.
It's not the Phillies.
Doesn't matter.
The Texas Rangers. And here's why. Because the Texas Rangers, back in when Shohei was 18 years old, when he was a highly touted kid coming out of high school, the Texas Rangers, the Angels, and also the Phillies were 3 teams, and I think the Red Sox were one of them. There were 4 teams that were looking at Shohei and wanting to bring him to the big leagues, and those were the original 4 teams. And I remember, John Daniels, who was running the Texas Rangers at that time, him and his front office went to Japan a bunch of times just to take a look at Shohei Ohtani because they knew that he was going to be the next big thing. And they, I believe the Rangers were in the Shohei Derby years ago. They loved him out of high school. They just have that connection, and I can't rule them out because right now, when you think about the Texas Rangers, yeah, they have Corey Seager. Yeah, they have Marcus Semien. Jacob deGrom's hurt. The Rangers need another great starting pitcher, another ace, and also the Texas Rangers, they're starting to become good. And, Shohei, when he was meeting with the Giants, I believe back in 2017, he was talking a lot of great stuff about Bruce Bochy and how he respects him as a manager. So with those connections, I just think that you got to throw the Rangers in there as a legitimate possibility. And then number 1, and I know Laurel is going to be so happy to hear me say this. He's going to probably jump out of his chair. It's got to be the Dodgers. The Dodgers.
Yeah.
In LA where he is playing right now.
They got the most draft capital.
Exactly. They have the most draft capital. Their farm system is stacked. I mean, they can trade anybody in that farm system. They can give up half the farm system, and it really wouldn't matter. I mean, and plus their payroll, it just seems like it's just limitless. So that's my order for Shohei. But keep an eye on the Rangers. Don't be shocked about Texas for Ohtani.
That's just weird because nobody mentions the Rangers. That's the first time I ever heard somebody mention Texas. But you actually, for once, have a valid reasoning and something I don't remember. I remember him being either a Mariner or an Angel. It came down to those 2. Never was the Rangers mentioned in that time, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
Well, also about the Rangers, if you look at the Texas Rangers, I feel like they're missing that true superstar, right? They have Seager, they have Semien, they're good, but I don't think you would consider Seager or Semien really like superstars. Yeah. I think that if the Rangers got Shohei, it would complete the team. I feel like they already have a great team with a bunch of stars, all-stars. But if you add that superstar to your ball club with the stars that you have, the depth pieces that you have, that would just complete the team. And I think that is the big piece the Texas Rangers are just missing right now.
They don't need another piece.
I have a really massive dark horse for Ohtani right now, and this could be the biggest surprise to both of you. For a team that's really young, I feel like they have a decent amount of draft capital. He could stay still within a warmer climate. Watch out for the Miami Marlins to take a look at Shohei Ohtani. They have a new overall, kind of front office. They're an up-and-coming type team. And they just have a team specifically where you put a guy like him over in that middle part of that lineup. With Chisholm and Arise. Obviously, they have really good pitching where they could essentially, if you wanted to trade Jesus Luzardo and Yuri Perez and have that 1-2 punch of him and Sandy Alcantara. I mean, that would be crazy to think about. I mean, that's probably more of a far-fetched idea than not. next week our next show. We will talk about the second half teams. We'll talk kind of more about that. And I know Isaiah, you did mention about you believe he's going to get moved at the end of the season. I think so too. I think that there's going to be some teams that'll have some offers out there by the deadline, but I think that the Angels are going to keep him. So James, you could be able to keep your star for at least a little bit longer, probably then until the next couple of weeks. I know that might not be the best thing for you, and but at least you can kind of keep him, and at least you maybe could be able to savor some moments of your final time with the budding star.
It's funny you mention that because I was at the last Ohtani giveaway. It was the Ohtani Trout bobblehead. The Angels PR, as idiotic as they are, they made sure, hey, let's do one more giveaway before the trade deadline of Shohei Ohtani, and then see what happens. Now, for the right compensation, they should have did it before last trade deadline, last season. They would have got more for him, and then you would have had a whole do-over for this season. So I feel like the ownership won't trade him. They're going to say, hey, we feel so confident, and we'll give him whatever he wants. The stupid owner, Artie Moreno, he thinks we're going to contend and that he's a big part of it, Shohei Ohtani. But when you realize the Angels aren't anything, so it's like the Angels will think they're going to try to win, but as you saw the last 8 years, nothing.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But like I said, guys, second half starts tomorrow. So we got through our little All-Star break, and really exciting stuff. Can't wait for the second half of the season. But we'll talk more about that in my next show and Batter Up in a couple of weeks, as well as Sports Weekly. But now let's turn our attention to some football. How about we talk about some football? We're getting to almost that time of year where football is getting to closer, and 2 weeks from, I guess, well, now yesterday for me, but essentially right around that time, teams are going to be reporting for their training camps. I know that I really love summer, so I hope that summer is still kind of around, the area, and I can go out to the beach and go to some vacations. So I'm going to be going to, by the way, so I will be enjoying that. But we get to August, and you know what that means. You get to some little bit of preseason stuff. Then you get to the end of August, kind of start getting a little bit more. But then you get to September, and what happens in September? Well, kids go back to school, but no, football. We get some real life football, and man, I can't wait for this season. I've been really kind of like after I feel like the Super Bowl was a long, long time ago from now. There really hasn't been like a lot of stuff. I know that the Hopkins stuff and the Cook stuff, and I know we've kind of talked about in the past. We'll probably talk more about that by the time he'll make a decision, which I don't know. I'm not sure in terms of. I know the rumors of the odds of DeAndre Hopkins going back and forth between the Patriots and the Titans. Just make up your mind, man. I mean, I don't really care at this point. But I'll start with you guys too. I want to kind of talk about the storylines for each of you guys' teams going into training camp. What are you guys looking for specifically for each of you guys' teams? James, you could be you're brutally honest, my guy. There could be some stuff you're like, okay, what are we doing? This is why we have a really fun platform in here we could talk about. So Isaiah, I want to talk about you with the Niners. I know that obviously that they are in a competition. I know that Sam Darnold is now coming in for a quarterback, alongside Brock Purdy. They still have Trey Lance around. Still the plethora of weapons with McCaffrey and Kittle, Samuel, and Ayuk, who, by the way, I did an early fantasy draft for football the other day, and I actually picked up Brandon Ayuk, so you can thank me. I have him off the bench. But your overall, thing about the Niners this year. I mean, they should still be one of the perennial favorites in the NFC. You look at it, but I want to ask you, what are some question marks that you want to see going to the start of the training camp? Anything you're kind of looking out for really quickly before I go to James?
Well, I think that, besides the quarterback, right? Because I'll get into the quarterback probably later. But besides the quarterback, because we've talked about the quarterback conundrum for so many weeks, days, months, it seems like, that it's kind of like beating a dead horse at this point. But in terms of like the other issues for the Niners, the one thing, like some of the things that I really want to see is we have a new kicker. We have Jake Moody, the kid out of Michigan, who hit some long bomb field goals in college, and he's supposed to be really, really good. And we drafted him in the 3rd round. And when you draft a kicker in the 3rd round, he cannot be very, very good. He has to be great. You don't draft a kicker that high in the draft ever. You always draft kickers like 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. But to draft the kicker high in the 3rd round, I mean, that was a massive leap of faith by John Lynch and the 49ers front office. And he's going to be replacing a future Hall of Famer in Robbie Gould. And he's got to, he cannot struggle. And I feel bad for the kid because he enters into like a Daniel Carlson with the Viking situation where Carlson was replacing a kicker who had done a lot of great stuff for the Vikings. And then he ended up shanking like his first 3 field goals. And then he gets cut the very next day, signs with James's Raiders, and he has looked like Mr. Automatic ever since. I mean, it's insane. But yeah, I want to see how Jake Moody does. I actually like that draft pick. He was one of my favorite kickers coming out of the draft. And then the other like storyline I'm definitely looking forward to seeing for the Niners is, there's been rumors that the Niners might sign another pass rusher. And if I'm the Niners with, Ngakwe available right now and other guys available right now, I would definitely take a flyer. Clowney, yeah, I would definitely take a flyer because our pass rush last season kind of dipped in the playoffs. Besides Bosa, there wasn't really anybody that was getting after the quarterback well in the postseason. And I think that if you can have Bosa, you have Hargraves in the middle, you have Eric Armstead in the middle, you're just missing that guy opposite of Bosa to get after the quarterback. And I think if you get a Clowney, if you get a Ngakwe, then I think that for the Niners, that definitely would be really helpful for our defense. And I'm worried about the secondary, to be honest. I think that, and James, you and Ben might think that I'm absolutely crazy for saying this, but I think the Niners not signing Taylor Rapp is going to end up costing us a Super Bowl. I really do. I think that, like, it's not like people think the reason why, like, I was pissed off that the Niners didn't sign Rapp was because, we didn't get an Asian on the team. That's not the case whatsoever. The reason why I was pissed that the Niners didn't sign Rapp was because it just went to show you that the Niners are so stubborn and goes to show you that, we need secondary help. Yeah, Rapp is not like the greatest of safeties. He's not the greatest of secondary members, but you don't pay $2 million. You're not even going to be willing to commit $2 million to get a secondary piece to help bolster your secondary. That was really what ticked me off, was that it just showed that the Niners invest so much in the D-line, they invest so much in the linebackers, but when it comes to the secondary, it's like, oh, we'll just get some pieces off the scrap heap and we'll just plug them in because our defensive line is so great and we'll just plug them in and we'll be fine. No, like, you've been torched time and time again to the point where, you're losing big games because of this. And I just hope that the Niners, because I know there are some few good free agent corners out there, like a Bryce Callahan, Marcus Peters, I think, is out there as well. I want the Niners to definitely sign one of those guys, and I want to see that training camp battle to see who actually takes the spot as the number 2 corner opposite of Charvarius Ward, because right now it's Isaiah Oliver coming off a torn ACL. Like, that just shows you how bad our secondary corps is. So, those are some of the stuff that I want to see in training camp. I also want to see, how Brock Purdy progresses. I think that he's got a bright future ahead of him, and I think that, if he's healthy, I think he can be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And I also want to see Trey Lance, because I think that it's year 3. Like, if you don't show me in preseason what you got, like, I think it's time to move on and, Like, I want to see how Trey Lance does. If he struggles, then the Niners probably won't be able to get anything back from him for him. But if he balls out, then you could probably get maybe like a second or third round pick, depending on how he plays in a training camp.
Now, really quickly, I have a question for you, Isaiah. And this is obviously something I've kind of had in thoughts, or at least the last couple of weeks, about the Niners. Is what are some of the skill players like Debo and George Kittle in terms of, the Niners have 3 quarterbacks now that are essentially, you can say, starters. But Trey Lance essentially, between injuries and some other things. I was just reading kind of when you were talking about how Debo Samuel has been seeing significant improvement from Trey Lance, obviously in his 3rd year. Do you feel like specifically that a lot of players are kind of more in support of Purdy and kind of him himself, or do you feel like a lot of skill players are hopeful that Lance can at least improve, even if he might not be the starter going into the season?
Well, I think that if you had asked me a couple months ago, I would have said that Purdy's definitely got a lot of the support, and I think he still does have a lot of the support. But I think Lance has slowly gotten some of the support back. Here's the thing about Lance, and I don't think it's his fault, and that is I don't think that Trey Lance will ever get the full support of the locker room because these guys were just so close with Jimmy Garoppolo, and when Trey Lance was drafted, it's not his fault, but it just seemed like that the Niners basically said, Jimmy, we appreciate everything you've done, but get out of the door. We're going to have this kid be our quarterback from now on. It was just basically forced upon them. And I think that there's been a lot of guys in the locker room that's held a grudge against Trey Lance because of it. But again, it's not his fault. Like, he was drafted by the team. It wasn't like he chose to push Jimmy out the door. But I just don't think that, from the get-go, I just honestly don't think that Trey Lance has held the locker room. And I don't think he will ever get it, sadly, just because of how close the guys were to Jimmy. And you see it. Like, Trey Lance has never had the full support like Brock Purdy's had in his one season in the league. And you could tell the difference of how the guys enjoy Purdy and how the guys interact with Trey Lance. And that's why I just think at the end of the day, I think both sides parting ways, Lance going to another team, getting a change of scenery. I think that's just the best case for him because I just don't want to see a locker room where it's split and one side's pulling for the guy, one side's pulling against the guy, and then, basically chaos is raining down.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And the first preseason game is actually going to be against James's Raiders, which we'll transit over now to his team. And I know, James, you don't seem like you're very excited or kind of ready for it. I don't know if you kind of want to maybe tell me kind of how you feel, because obviously I'll ask you. But obviously with your Raiders, a.k.a. Vegas, our Patriots West, they have Jimmy G and they have Brian Hoyer, the 2 guys that we used to have. They have Dave Ziegler kind of around, and, they have Devontae Adams still. Yeah, by the way, one of the best receivers still in football. Another thing we'll talk about, James, which is the latest, is one of your star offensive players right now has until Monday to sign that long-term deal. And maybe that's what you're getting at right now in terms of your stress level, because right now Josh Jacobs is currently on the franchise tag, and he has until Monday to sign that long-term deal. We'll talk actually about that more after this. Is kind of just – that's a massive thing to kind of look at. But, James, you overall looking forward to the Raiders and the next couple weeks leading up to their opening of training camp?
Man, if you love football, hell, you'll love Sin City and the Raiders. Because that's what they're in right now.
What is worse, the Angels or the Raiders for James?
Welcome to my misery right now.
Oh.
I might go off all over these sports shows and go into another topic of life.
Look at the Clippers too.
Yeah, see,
Angels of football, maybe.
Yeah, it's like all hell right now in all these situations. The Clippers, the players don't want to play. The Raiders they have some players, but they suck. The Angels have players, but they suck too. I don't have a hockey team, but
oh man,
it would probably be the last place Ducks, who failed to get the first pick in the draft lottery. Anyway,
you can ask Taylor. Taylor loves the Ducks. You can talk to Taylor about how he survived the Ducks.
Yeah. Man, I cannot. I mean, I could wait for the season to start for the Raiders. For training camp here, the way that Derek Carr, I know he was so up and down in his career with the Raiders, starting in Oakland. It was like disrespect back and forth. But the fact that they didn't have him play the last 2 games made his wife cry, supposedly. And Carr didn't, want to get a sign-in trade or whatever to give the Raiders something back. So that screwed the Raiders so much. And now, no disrespect to any of you that had Jimmy G, but I didn't want him. When they signed him, I kept thinking of ways that this would work out. And then, guess what? He had foot surgery right away in March.
That sounds like him, unfortunately.
Yeah. How am I going to get excited about a guy that is on the field, less than 50% of the time in the season? I can't. And then you have Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell. No, they don't have Nick Mullins, Isaiah. That was, I think, last year, a couple of years ago. But I'm like, for the quarterback situation, I would have been just better with Carr. I know it would have been more money, but at least you have someone that knows the system, knows the team, has been loyal when they've been unloyal to him. And I'm talking about Derek Carr, of course. So losing him was pretty bad. I know the fan base is kind of torn about him. But to have Jimmy G as a starter, I was like, no, that's not the right guy. I would have gone younger in the draft, traded up and got one of those young quarterbacks, honestly. The Josh Jacobs situation. They disrespected him, last year. Even though he had a great last year, they didn't sign him to a long-term deal then. So he went out and balled out, and he feels like he doesn't have to prove anything else. And that's why he's holding out, in my opinion. We know that running backs don't, last as long. He's only 25, by the way, but he's really good. And the hope is that he signs a deal. But just like Barkley, because Barkley feels disrespected as well with the Giants. I don't see a scenario where Jacobs signs whatever deal. He's going to want more and eventually a trade out, which I'm at peace with already. I just feel like his time ended, right away. When they didn't sign that deal, I thought, okay, after last season, he was going to go elsewhere. That's what I felt like. You have Devontae Adams, but you feel like, well, who's going to throw the ball to him? Is he going to get someone to throw it over his head, at his legs, at his knees, on the ground, spike it? You got to get the ball to Devontae Adams, and I feel like he's going to get more defiant, and he's going to want to trade out before the trade deadline. I really feel that way. So if there's a team that needs a wide receiver, call up the Raiders. Jacoby Myers, we got a guy that throws the ball backwards. It did help the Raiders in this case, but
you could thank us.
Yeah, I still can't believe that happened. Oh my God. I don't want that kind of mindset with somebody. Hunter Renfrow is always injured. Austin Hooper is a really good addition, along with Michael Mayer and O.J. Howard. So the tight ends are at least pretty set there. The offensive lineman, Colton Miller, Andre James is good, but everyone else is kind of average, very young. The defense, who they keep trying to say, it's improved. No. All they have is Max Crosby. You have an old-ass Chandler Jones that's good only for like 2 or 3 good games of the year, and then the rest of the year he just disappears. That's what happened last year. When you think about his game against the Chargers in Las Vegas, he was going up against a rookie right tackle so he exploited him. That's supposed to happen, but the rest of the year he disappeared. It was supposed to be a 1-2 punch of Crosby and Jones, and that wasn't the case. A lot of no names in the linebacking corp. You have a secondary that's very young, but has great potential with Nate Hobbs. But everybody else is very questionable. So I would say the only part of the team right now that is valuable are the special teams. And that's been that way for a while. When they were in Oakland, too, it was that way through the whole 2000s almost. It was like Janikowski and Shane Leckler. The kicker and punter were the best parts about the teams. So Daniel Carlson, as Isaiah mentioned, one of the best kickers in the league. Very, you could trust him. Very trustworthy. AJ Cole's a really good punter, and he's going to be busy this year, I guarantee you. All the 3 and outs the Raiders will have, whether it be Jimmy G or what's his name, Brian Hoyer starting. Yeah. So man, I'm not looking forward to the season. I know training camp's going to be there. In 2 weeks you mentioned? Oh, look at the screen, James. I'm not looking forward to the season. There's just so many question marks, more than last year, of course. And I was coming off a playoff berth. And last year was a disaster, and this year will be more of a disaster for the Raiders.
All right. In terms of my Patriots, can't wait for a couple weeks. This is going to be a season I think that I think we might surprise some people. I don't think we're going to be at the top tier of the AFC. I look at still the AFC of like Cincinnati and Kansas City and Buffalo, even teams like Baltimore and Jacksonville. But I think with the new offensive coordinator and Bill O'Brien, I think it's going to be massive for him. They moved on from Jonnu Smith at tight end. They brought in Mike Gesicki. I still hope that they can maybe, hopefully take a look at still getting D-Hop. I really still think that the offense still doesn't have that specific threat that a defense essentially could just look kind of scheme specifically. I think right now our best offensive player, if you ask me, is Ramondre Stevenson at running back. Hopefully that they can be a little bit more balanced this year. Last year they were very up and down, specifically scheme-wise. And then defensively, Matt Judon obviously is potentially the best player on our team. Have him and Josh Uche kind of across from each other. Love to kind of see how the pass rush does. The linebackers, I still think we're a little thin at. The two spots I think are at offensive line and at defense. And at offensive line, that really worries me for Mac Jones for a season specifically that he is coming in at a contract year. You could have all the weapons for him. You could essentially get all the new coaching. Essentially, nobody talks about it, but the offensive line is essentially one of the most important parts on the football field. And if you can't protect him and you get him killed, it's not going to be pretty. And I want him to, of course, succeed for a potential year that could be a make or break type of year for him. And, specifically, personally, I don't want to go back into the draft. I know that Isaiah has a love affair for Bailey Zappi, but, I know that Bailey Zappi is a good guy and stuff like that. And I love that Zappi fever, but I think specifically Mac Jones should still have a shot to be this quarterback. And I've been reading all the Bill Belichick stuff in the hot seat, the articles and stuff like that. I don't want to look at that as of right now. But I do have to say specifically for the division that, I feel like Miami is going to be kind of still right around the same as last year. I feel like Buffalo might slip a little bit. I feel like I'm not saying that they're going to be bad. I still think they're going to be good. But, you saw the stuff with Stephon Diggs off the field. They kind of just have I feel like it's going to start to close in a little bit more after time. I felt like after that game against Kansas City in that championship game, I just feel like ever since then, they haven't, playoff-wise, they haven't been the same since. But, they're still going to be tough. The Jets, of course, with Rodgers. So the division itself is going to be tough, but, the division and the schedule itself, too, is going to be absolutely brutal. But what I really want to see is how they kind of mix up the lines offensively and defensively. And then some of the rookies, Christian Gonzalez, of course, that cornerback. I want to see, obviously, how that plays. They haven't talked anything about the Jack Jones situation kind of after what happened. And I know that Jack Jones potentially was going to get some reps for that, but who knows what's going to happen specifically on his personal life. But that's another story for another day because still that's a massive thing to look at. So, I mean, there's a lot of places to look at, but I think specifically it's Mac Jones' progression, offensively, how they scheme him up with the new coaching staff, and then, of course, the offensive line. Defensively, of course, the secondary, I still think is not terribly bad. The linebackers, of course, I think is still a little limited. But, the first preseason game is against Houston, and then we have two kind of games on the road. Probably have a lot of Zappy, maybe a little bit of Trace McSorley, who we ended up picking up this offseason. So there's not really kind of a lot you can probably see with Mac outside a couple snaps, but that's kind of really my overall view of, I guess, early storylines for that. So since we kind of already talked about that, what I do want to talk about is a little bit kind of we already talked about as well is, according to multiple reports, including Diana Rustini and some others, running back Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Evan Ingram, and Tony Pollard, 4 guys right now are currently under the franchise tag. They have until Monday to get a long-term deal done. What I'm going to ask you guys specifically is your overall thoughts about that. And in terms of, do they hold out? Do they get the extension? Or do they play under the franchise tag? So I will start with James first, and I will start with Josh Jacobs for you, James, of course, because he is a Raider. Do you personally think that he'll play under the franchise tag? Do you think that he's going to hold out at the start of the season? Or are they going to give him the extension?
I feel like he's going to hold out, and it's going to – well, the team's already done, but it's going to hurt the team even more, especially early in the season. I think eventually a trade will happen. I just feel that it's going to happen. They won't get a deal done with Josh Jacobs. I think, like I said, I feel like the team disrespected him before last season, not signing him to a long-term deal. He balled out. He wanted what he deserves, but the Raiders are not going to do that for him.
What about you, Isaiah? What do you think about Josh Jacobs? Do you think he's going to hold out? Do you think he's going to get paid by Monday? Or is he going to get the extension?
I think he's going to. I don't think he's going to get paid. I think he's going to hold out. I think that the Raiders reluctantly gave him that deal. I don't think that Josh McDaniels really values paying a lot of money in his running backs. I mean, he never really did it in New England. I mean, the Patriots never really had that high priced star running back. It just seemed like everybody they were churning out just bought out. So I don't know why they gave him that tag in the first place. It kind of didn't make a lot of sense. But I guess with Jacobs, I don't see it happening because I just don't think Josh McDaniels is going to place a big priority on giving a running back a big money deal. I just don't think he'll do it.
I agree. I think that if you ask me right now until Monday, I think he's going to hold out. I wouldn't be surprised if he holds out to start the season. And I wouldn't be surprised specifically if Miami could potentially be an option for Josh Jacobs in the long term because they've been looking at running backs. I want to say a trade essentially for Jacobs would happen this year, but I think he'll play under the franchise tag after having a start of a holdout and then potentially after this upcoming season. How about Saquon Barkley? There's been a lot of rumblings as of late that apparently the Giants lowballed an offer for the Pro Bowl running back, which for a lot of my Giant fans around me, I'll keep them down low because they probably don't want to hear that. But I think as of right now, I think that Saquon's going to play under the franchise tag. I don't think he's going to hold out, but I think he'll play under the tag, and I think he's going to get paid from somebody else after this upcoming season. What about you, Isaiah?
I think he's going to get a new deal. I think he's just too valuable to the Giants for them to let him go or to play him on a tag because the thing is that Saquon Barkley is literally like their offense. You know, Daniel Jones is good, but he needs a reliable running game for him to have success, and you saw that last year. So I think that the Giants are going to come to their senses and realize that he's just too good for them to let go or to play under the tag, and they're going to end up giving him not what he wants, but close to what he wants.
And you, James, what do you think about Saquon Barkley? Does he get the tag? Does he hold out, or does he get the extension?
I totally agree for once with everything Isaiah said, and would have said almost everything, but in more words and stuttering with what Isaiah said. So I definitely agree with him.
All right, now two guys specifically that haven't really been in the news as of late, but they're currently their names essentially to look out for Monday. Evan Ingram. I think he's going to get the extension. I think that the Jags really love Ingram, essentially a part of their offense. So I'm going to go extension. How about you guys? I'll start with James now on this one.
Yeah, I mean, when you could finally find a place where you don't drop your passes or drop the catches, remember he had Butterfingers in his other stops, and that's why he's bounced around a lot. But I guess that warm, humid air in Jacksonville helped him out, and maybe having a competent quarterback, a young quarterback like Lawrence, helped him out. So I hope I think a deal will get done for Evan Ingram to stay with Jacksonville, and he can hold on to the catches.
How about you, Isaiah?
I think he's going to play under the tag. Tight ends don't really get a lot of money nowadays, and it was his first good year in the NFL. Like James has mentioned, he keeps dropping a lot of passes. That was what he was known for before this year, and he finally, shook it off and balled out. But I think the Jags want to see a little bit more from him before they give him the big money.
Ingram this past season had 766 yards and 4 touchdowns. So obviously his overall stats weren't terrible, kind of compared to past years. Because with the Giants, I mean, Giant fans around me, they were so excited when they let him go, and I just think maybe at times it's just a change of scenery. So time will tell about that. Tony Pollard, man, this is a tough one. I know that Zeke Elliott's been essentially cut, so I essentially kind of don't know kind of the depth chart behind Pollard as of right now. I probably assume that the Cowboys maybe drafted some running backs. So they have Malik Davis, they have Ronald Jones. Okay, so they have some guys that I've kind of looked at. But I think they're going to keep an extension for Tony Pollard. I really look at it that way. I think that they're gonna lock him up long term. And so I have Jacobs holding out. I have Barkley under the tag. And then I have Ingram and Pollard to extensions. What about you, James? What do you think about Pollard? What do you think he's going to do?
Yeah, I think he should get the extension. He's going to get, 80% of the workload back there. I know he's coming off a horrific injury against the Niners. And I thought it was worse, honestly. I didn't think he was going to play much of the season, but I was wrong, like most of the time. I look at a game against the Raiders couple Thanksgivings ago where he had 4 touchdowns. He was just amazing. And you just knew right then and there he was their feature running back. Ezekiel Elliott, he's a non-factor. That's why nobody wants him right now. He ate I know for sure, he ate his way out of something, out of a potential spot. So you could just tell Pollard is the main guy. And, they'll sign that extension.
How about you, Isaiah? What do you think about Tony Pollard? What is he going to do by Monday?
I think he gets extended. The Cowboys are like the Niners. They love to run the football, and he's their lead back, and he does a lot of damage with his legs. And I think that with Tony Pollard, he's just so essential to their team that they just cannot afford to let him go. And if you had asked me about, this yesterday, I probably would have said no because I didn't know how his injuries were, but I did some research on his injuries, and he should be back by the start of the season. So It sounds good on that front. It sounds good that he's progressing. But yeah, like James mentioned, I mean, that was a horrific injury that he suffered against the Niners. And the fact that he's not only not going to miss any games, but he's going to be back by the start of the season. He's going to be started or by the start of preseason and training camp. That's absolutely insane.
All right. Now here comes the top 5 QBs that we all chose off the air. This is going to be a topic where it could be a little bit off the rails, but let's obviously kind of give our overall points across for it. Next week, we're going to have our top 5 running backs, and then the weeks after that, we will go into our top 5 for the other positions. But I want to start, of course, at the forefront. We'll kind of get this one out of the way. Because I think that this one's probably had the most to it. So I will start with James. Your top 5 quarterbacks coming into this upcoming season. And if you want to maybe have some recap or kind of reasoning to it, by all means, that's fine. But just your top 5 quarterbacks projected that you have going into this season.
Well, Jimmy G is number 1. No, I'm just playing.
Good start. We're off to a good start, guys.
Oh boy. Number 5, I have Jalen Hurts. He's the best in the NFC. So there's a clue about the front 4. He already got his team to the Super Bowl. He can run and pass. He can do pretty much anything. The only reason I don't have him higher is just because he's younger than the other ones. But we'll see how he does without a running game without Miles Sanders. We'll see how that goes. And then all the wear and tear with the running, he'll have to adjust his game. But the fact that he brought the Eagles to the Super Bowl, I think, is very impressive. Number 4 is Trevor Lawrence. I already put him in there because I feel like he's got a golden arm. He makes other players better. He gets them the ball well. He can even scramble for some first downs. But he's already your prototypical quarterback, looking wise and throwing wise. And he's led that franchise to a playoff win. One, they haven't had since, 2017? So I really think he's on the rise. And on the rise is meaning, that's why I have him at 4. Number 3 may shock some people, but I got to go with Josh Allen. I feel like he's going to have a slump for this season. I just feel like Buffalo in general might have a slump. Like, they'll still win their division, but the Madden curse is out there. But I feel like the dysfunction with Stephon Diggs, there's still some fire to that. I feel like something's gonna mishap there where Allen's gonna struggle this year. That might mean like 100 less passing yards, whatever the case may be. He might have an injury setback from all the running he does, and maybe that will be his Achilles heel, no pun intended. Number 2, the man who beat him, Joe Burrow, in the playoffs last year. I just feel like, and I know Isaiah don't like it, I feel
this is going to get crazy, I'll tell you this.
Especially when he does his. I
can't wait.
I feel like, okay, he's going to get his pay once that comes up. I think it's after this season, right? He gets his extension or 2 years from now. I think he's a natural-born leader. We saw that with LSU. We've seen that with the Bengals. It would have helped. It would have gave this more merit if he was able to defeat the Rams in the Super Bowl. But already the poise and the moxie that he has, if that's a word, I just really like what he can do. And Isaiah did mention this. Well, he's got all these weapons around him. Well, he still has to get the ball to all these guys. And it's a great thing when you have that. Now, the key will be with the running back Mixon. If he has to miss some games, this year, all that pressure, the Ohtani pressure, where your back is going to hurt, is going to be on Joe Burrow, where he has to literally carry the team and get the ball to those guys, knowing that you don't have a running game unless they go out and get someone. So the pressure's on Burrow, and I think he's going to thrive. Number one, of course, Kermit the Frog. I mean, what's his name? Pat Mahomes.
My homie.
Yeah. I just feel like, hey, DeAndre Hopkins, excuse me. If you want to go win, sign a 1-year deal with Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, and go there and win. I feel like right now he is the face of the league, as much as we all hate that. Most importantly, me.
I like him, but I know.
No, I mean like as a divisional opponent, as a Raider.
I bet. Yeah.
And like we didn't need that. We just need Alex Smith and a nobody to come after Alex. But he has blossomed to be the MVP, Super Bowl champion. Yearly does things we never dreamt of behind the line. His no-look passes, just his sidearm passes. They can never grab him. They can never sack him. He always gets away and gets a first down. That shows you you're a video game cheat, because you can never beat him, it feels like. That's why he's my number one. And the fact, too, that he cut ties kind of with Jackson Mahomes being around the games, I think that helps, too. Controlling Brittany Mahomes, the wife, a little bit. I think that's going to help his career on those two people and his immediate family. I think that's only going to spring him to win more. So that's my top 5 right there: Hurts, Lawrence, Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes.
Now, James, before we go into Isaiah, and I know that this list is going to get crazy, do you have any honorable mentions that you didn't have in your top 5 that you might want to put in?
Kirk. Oh boy, Kirk Cousins. Pretty much a lot of the NFC guys.
Lamar.
Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. Let's go with Deshaun Watson. He likes to penetrate. Give me Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford. No, I'm just kidding. Derek Carr.
I think that's good, my guy. I mean, I was only asking for maybe a couple, but you got a decent list. So, yeah, I mean, I really like your top 5 for sure. Now let's bring it over to this guy right here, and I saw some of it, I believe, off the air, but I would like to see maybe if you revised it. I would obviously like to hear kind of your thoughts. Isaiah Leon, what is your top 5 projected NFL quarterbacks coming into this NFL season?
So we're talking about projected, right? Like not right
Yes.
now? Okay. All right.
Just
So
your overall projection for like early on. And then I'm going to ask you for the show at the mid part of the season, how you looked at those, if you felt like those were good. And then we're going to have a closing one by the end of it. So your early projected NFL quarterbacks coming into this season, your top 5.
all right, so my top 5. All right, I'm gonna start from 1 and then go down because
No.
I think you guys all know my number 1 is, though. I think you guys know who my number 1 is.
Mahomes.
So that won't be. Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, okay.
I'll save
Yes.
the craziness.
1 for 1.
Yeah, so it's Mahomes. Obviously, I can't even argue with it. Like I was trying to go through the list, and I was trying to say, is this guy better than Mahomes? No. Is this guy better than Mahomes? Nope. Is this guy better? No. I was trying to make the case, but I couldn't make it. I mean, Patrick Mahomes had an unbelievable season again, especially with that division just getting tougher and tougher and tougher every single year. But, I mean, the guy threw 41 touchdowns and only had 12 interceptions and threw for 5,250 yards last season.
Without Tyreek Hill, by the way.
Without Tyreek Hill, yeah. Without Tyreek Hill at his disposal. So, I mean, credit to him. He won another Super Bowl.
And of course, he just won the Super Bowl, so you can't bet against him.
Yeah, and I mean, that defense against that Eagles defense where he just completely shredded him when he was injured as well. So got to put him up there at number one. And here's where I'm going to start disagreeing with all of you guys. Number two on my list. Get ready for this. Get ready for all of this, actually. Number two on my list. I got Mahomes number one. Number two on my list, Trevor Lawrence. And here's why.
Wow.
Because this guy took a massive step up last season. And we saw what he did at Clemson. I mean, the guy balled out at Clemson. And when he was in Jacksonville, I feel like last year they kind of babied him, where it was like, we're going to keep him kind of on a leash and we're going to run the football a lot and not have him do a whole lot. And in that offense and not having him do a whole lot and them kind of babying him, he still threw for 4,113 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He led the Jaguars from the worst team in the NFL into the playoffs. They got a playoff win over the Chargers. He led them back from being down 27-7 in a situation where, a lot of young quarterbacks would have wilted at that time, especially – in the first half, you throwing 3 interceptions, like a lot of young quarterbacks would have wilted. So his poise, his accuracy, his footwork, his leadership. I mean, I was just so impressed with him. And now he's going to get Calvin Ridley at his disposal. And you look at, I think he's about to take that next step and truly move into the top 3 quarterback range in the NFL. So I got Trevor Lawrence at 2. Number 3, I got Josh Allen because, Josh Allen is still great. He's still one of the best. But I got to agree with you. There's something wrong with Buffalo right now. It just seems like there's something that is not – there's something wrong with Buffalo, with the Stephon Diggs situation, with the situation that I think there was other chaos that was going on in Buffalo. There's just something wrong, and I just think Buffalo. I agree with you guys. I think Buffalo is going to take a step back this year. I think that the AFC as a whole has just gotten better and better and better. In fact, I would not be shocked if the Buffalo Bills are a wild card team because you have the Jets there, you have the Bills, and I think it's going to be the Jets and the Dolphins as well. I think it's that division. I mean, that division is going to be kind of like what the NFC West was supposed to be for like the last several years, and it's going to be a bloodbath. And I think that I could see a situation where Buffalo is one of the last few wild card teams because that division and that conference as a whole is just so damn, wild and crazy. And I think that, Josh Allen, the thing about Josh Allen is Steven is right on one thing. In the big moments, Josh Allen does choke. There's been times where he throws an untimely interception or he fumbles. Yeah, or he fumbles, exactly. So you can't really count on him, in the big moments. He's kind of like a James Harden, sadly, where you just can't really count on him in the big games. And here's where it gets crazy, fellas. Here's where it gets good. Number 4 on this.
Hey, I thought it was already worse as it was, so I'll take this right now. So anything else can't shock me. So
Isaiah, you better.
I'm not as
Number 4 on this list. I am putting the guy with the ice in his veins, Brock Purdy, Mr. Number 4 quarterback. He is the number 4 quarterback in the NFL. And here's the thing. Everybody says that Joe Burrow, he's a superstar. He's hella elite, all that stuff. Okay. Brock Purdy. Let's look at Brock Purdy for a second. Brock Purdy balled out at Iowa State, albeit he didn't, win the national championship. If you put him on that LSU team, I think you can make a case that he does win the national championship because that's how he played in college. He didn't have a lot of good weapons, and he still managed to ball out. So both guys balled out in college. And then you look at the comparison between Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy. I know Ben and James knows where I'm going with this because I sent it in the group chat.
I'm intrigued.
How is Brock Purdy a system quarterback, but Joe Burrow considered superstar? You know what I'm saying? Like, Brock Purdy got a lot of weapons, right? Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, great offensive line. He's got a great play caller and Kyle Shanahan to work with. I get it. But Joe Burrow kind of has the same thing. He's got Zach Taylor, who's become one of the best play callers in the NFL the last several years. He's got, look at his receivers. I mean, he's got Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's got T. Higgins. He's got Tyler Boyd. I mean, he's got a three-headed monster at his disposal in terms of the wide receivers. And then he's got Joe Mixon, who, even though he gets in a lot of trouble off the field, I mean, the dude can still ball. I mean, Joe Mixon is one hell of a running back. And, you look at what Burrow has and what Purdy has. Yeah, both guys are definitely products of their system and products of the weapons, and both guys balled out in college. And I think from what I've seen, with Purdy, the thing with Burrow is that Burrow has like a strong arm. Burrow takes a lot of risks, but sometimes those risks can definitely cost him. Purdy doesn't have the strongest of strong arms, but what Purdy has is the ability to improvise, the ability to go off script, the ability to just play like backyard street football when needed and make these crazy plays that you're just like, how did he manage to do it? And when you look at what Purdy has done and what Burrow has done, yeah, Burrow made the AFC Championship game, but don't forget, Purdy made the NFC Championship game in his first year at the helm. So I think right now, when you look at it, if you have to compare it, I think Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than Joe Burrow, and I honestly think that if you put him in Cincinnati, I think he's putting up the same numbers that Joe Burrow is putting up there in Cincinnati. And when you talk about the other quarterbacks, right, you look at, I have him over Burrow. Lamar, you can't win a Super Bowl with a running quarterback. I think that's just, a lot of people have came to that same conclusion that Lamar's never going to win because you can't just win by running. You have to be able to pass the football. And then you look at other guys, Justin Herbert, the man just blew a 27-7 lead. Come on, man. If Brock Purdy was the Chargers quarterback, I doubt they would have blown that lead. I 1,000% doubt they would have blown that lead.
Niners also a better defense, though, to be fair.
That is true. That is true. But you look at, the other quarterbacks, Herbert. I think Herbert's a little too risky for my liking. That's why I have Purdy over him. And then you look at the other guys, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is tough because he is a better version of Lamar in a way where he's a good runner. And he didn't really pass the football good last season. I mean, the guy was hovering kind of at 60% completion percentage. He's definitely a product of the weapons and the system for sure. So just taking everything into consideration, I know James, I don't know if he walked off the set on me or not. He did.
Did you pick number 5, Burrow?
No, not yet. But one last thing on Purdy. 1,374 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, fellas. And this came in 8 games. 8 games. If he had done this in the remaining of the 8 games and played a whole 6 or 17 game schedule, Brock Purdy would have thrown for at least 3,500 yards with 27 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. I mean, that's top 5 quarterback worthy right there. So I'm putting Purdy at number 4. Last but not least, if you think Purdy's crazy, you may think this is crazy. Russell Wilson.
Oh my God.
Number 5. And here's why. Because last year was a fluke. Last year was a fluke for Russell Wilson. That was not on Russell Wilson. That was on Nathaniel Hackett. You saw what happened after Nathaniel Hackett got fired. Russell Wilson looked like a totally different quarterback, not under Nathaniel Hackett's offense. The reason why Nathaniel Hackett was brought in was because the Broncos wanted to lure Aaron Rodgers. That's why they brought him in. Once they got Wilson, it was not a good fit from the beginning. And now you bring in a Sean Payton, one of the best offensive coaches in football. You get him a better offensive line. You get him the running back, I'm forgetting his name, Samaje Perine, with Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. I think we're about to see a revenge season from Russell Wilson. And I honestly think that by the third game of the season, Russell Wilson will be back to a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
Isaiah, all I gotta say is outside the Brock Purdy nonsense, which I will keep to myself. Russell Wilson, I could see an argument with. It's really, really high hopes for it. Everything else, I can respect. I will say that specifically. Do you have any honorable mentions, Isaiah?
Oh yeah, a lot of them.
Just give me two. I'll be fine with two.
All right, I'll give him his flowers. Joe Burrow will be there at number 6. Number 7 is Aaron Rodgers. I got to put him there. And then number 8, I'll give it to him. I think he's closer to that range. Jalen Hurts.
What?
Interesting.
How do you not have Burrow in the top 5?
Number 6. He's number 6. He's just outside the top 10.
How are we that far apart about Burrow? How are we that far apart?
We could save it for off the air, guys. I knew that this discussion was going to go a little off the rails, but I will go to my. I know, James.
Bring us back, Ben. Bring us back to.
All right. Here we go. So I'll start with my honorable mentions here. I had Trevor Lawrence and I have Lamar Jackson. I think that those two guys right now, I think Lamar Jackson is going to have more opportunities this year to pass the football in a new scheme. So I think that's going to be awesome. They brought in Odell Beckham Jr. They also brought in Zay Flowers, two guys specifically that are going to want to have the football in their hands. And of course, by the way, they have one of the top 4 tight ends in football, Mark Andrews. That is a red zone dominant threat for Lamar Jackson. Trevor Lawrence, he's a budding star. And I agree with, Isaiah, you have that too. That's a lot of high praise. I could really see it. But obviously, Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence did wonders last year. And I really like in terms of where that's going. They're essentially going to be the long-term favorite, at least for me, for the long-term future. I really just like where they're going with that team. And they were really in that game against KC last year. You look at it, and I know that Mahomes went down, but they really went back and forth for a lot of that game. So, that says a lot for an up-and-coming type team like them, and they're going to be really fun to watch for years to come. Number 5, I have Jalen Hurts. He was just in the Super Bowl last year, so I can't keep him off of it. The Eagles are going to be a very dominant type team, a really good running type team. He's a running quarterback, and I know that obviously running quarterbacks usually don't win championships, but he definitely has a lot of arm ability too. He can get out of the pocket, and he's going to work wonders still with Nick Sirianni, who's been really good with him in his system. 4, I have Justin Herbert. I really do like Herbert. I know with the Chargers, I just think it's just the idiocy of Staley. He really has to get out of there. He's just completely out of control. And I think specifically that Herbert in some other type of system, right? He would be he maybe be in more championship games, potentially maybe down the road of a Super Bowl. But it's really the coaching that sets him back. And he is just kind of playing it year by year on that. But I don't have him at 4 because he has a lot of ability. Josh Allen, I have him at 3. I do agree with you guys. I really like Allen. It sucks that he has to keep killing my team year after year ever since Brady left. But I can't discredit the guy. He is an incredible talent. He is a bulldog. He's a machine essentially when you're trying to tackle him. Open space, if you're trying to tackle Josh Allen, he might be the hardest guy to tackle, and I'm not kidding. He is essentially Ben Roethlisberger, but with essentially running ability. It's crazy. By the way, he has a cannon of an arm too. He could just gun it. I just don't know specifically Gabe Davis, after Stephon Diggs, the production between after Stephon Diggs, right? I know that they have Dawson Knox. They have some guys, but I feel like for defenses, they're going to start to kind of figure things out more kind of over time because I just feel like it's kind of the same stuff. They lost Singletary. I don't know how good their running game is going to be. I still think that there's still a weakness. So Buffalo can't be one-dimensional. I think it's going to over time catch up to them, and they don't want to have Josh Allen running like crazy. So I do agree with you guys that, they're going to have to at least be a little bit more balanced. I just don't know specifically if their young running game could be able to take that next step. Number 2, I have Joe Burrow. Isaiah, I know that you love Purdy and you love Purdy. I have a lot of high praise for Purdy Magic. I can say there, but he is essentially essentially the other quarterback right now that I look at right now that could compete with the best quarterback in football consistently, and that is Patrick Mahomes. Burrow over time against Mahomes head to head has essentially had the better overall success outside of some of the times in the playoffs. I kind of look at it from matchups, Isaiah. Brock Purdy, you tell me in terms of the top five. Oh, by the way, look up his stats against Patrick Mahomes, and a couple times, and maybe get back to me on that. That's certainly kind of what I look at is how quarterbacks kind of match up with others. And if Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes is potentially be the young next up and coming Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. When you look at these two matchups specifically, much watch football. I know that Josh Allen and Mahomes have their overall cinema, but I love the Mahomes and Joe Burrow. I mean, the games have been much watched, have been close end to end, and with the amount of talent, and that's obviously something. So Burrow himself. I know that he's in a really good system. He has a lot of great weapons, but he is very durable, and I just think his overall mind is great. His instincts are really good. He might be one of the best instinct guys when a play is needed, where timing and placement. I mean, I'm not saying he has a Brady type of placement, but essentially he has very accuracy and really good in placement where he wants to throw the football. So that's a lot of high praise there. And then number one, it shouldn't be too hard. It's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, this guy is a MVP. It feels like year after year. He is with essentially the best team in football, with essentially the best coach right now. Outside, I mean, Belichick and probably others, but Andy Reid right now, I would say, is kind of the best coach. I mean, that pains me to say because Belichick's really been that, but I mean, you look at it, Belichick ever since Brady left, I mean, kind of more 500. Belichick's still the greatest of all time, but if you look at it right now, Reid's probably the best coach in terms of quarterback to coach. So I guess you could say it that way. I wouldn't say as of right now fully in terms of the NFL, but I'd say quarterback to coach, it's Andy Reid. So yeah, I mean, Mahomes, I can't bet against him right now. I mean, it's you take away in terms of the other quarterbacks, tell me other quarterbacks that are better than him. I don't think you can name one like Isaiah mentioned. So those are really my honorable mentions in my top 5 quarterbacks. So we will obviously keep these lists. Really looking forward to these. James, of course, if you want to, of course, talk with Isaiah at the air and maybe kind of put into some sense with him about Brock Purdy being the top 5, you can. I will keep that to myself. I won't say anything about that. But without further ado, guys, we will quickly go to because we are going to essentially be almost out of time. It's getting close to that point in time. We will save. So next week we're going to do for the NFL, where you're going to do, CBS has an article about some tier groups. We're going to kind of start doing some rankings, some power rankings from the AFC and the NFC. And there's some tier groups that an article had that I would like to show you guys. And I want to see if you guys would agree with it, or if you guys want to have like your own tier groups, I guess you can say. One tier group in terms of contenders. The one kind of in the middle is kind of like in the middle of the pack, and then some like sellers. I get like some of the teams are kind of at the bottom. So like 3 tiers. And then we'll kind of talk about that next week. Let's go into some NBA stuff. I would like to kind of discuss that. And the saga, the overall stuff, the Damian Lillard stuff continues. I wanted to quickly get into that stuff. It seems like there might be some traction with a little bit. I did read something today that the Damian Lillard and Trailblazers and the Miami Heat right now, there is talks about Tyler Hero and 3 first-round picks, and I think there is maybe something else. I'm not sure, but I know that as of right now, it's going to take weeks, right? I feel like this is not going to, come, today, tomorrow or by the end of this weekend. But do you feel like specifically with Damian Lillard, do you think that he's going to hold out? And if it comes to a point in time, the start of the season, if there's still not in terms of a trade package ready for him, or do you feel like they're going to get something done? And do you feel like specifically like a trade offer like Tyler Hero and 3 first-round picks will do it? So I will go to James. We'll start with the Lillard stuff, and then we'll get into the latest on James Harden, which I do have some news about, which I want to give you guys as well. Do you think that Damian Lillard will come to a point in time where he's going to end up holding out? due to the inability with the Portland Trailblazers in cooperating, I guess you can say, on the offer, because the president and the GM essentially are just like, we'll wait for our terms to give you this player. So what's your overall thoughts on the latest on this, I guess you can say, saga?
I feel like it's going to be months unless the Heat add in Bam Adebayo, and I know they don't want to, but it's going to take months. It might linger into the season. You remember, just like James Harden, where he had to play those awkward games with the Rockets, and he was really out of touch with everyone. He played himself basically out of games and trips down the floor. That was really awkward to see the way that James Harden ended up leaving the Rockets. I'm afraid it's going to get into that situation, or to the point where Lillard doesn't show up for games. So I think all this will go into the season. It's unfortunate, too, because we thought he was going to be the guy that bucked the trend to say, hey, I'm going to stay loyal and, I'm going to be here. I'm not going to join a big team or whatever. And now he's advocating to do so. So that's a little disappointing. It's funny to me when they had that extension for Jeremiah Grant, then the trade request came out for Damian Lillard. It was just funny timing on that, But it shows you that Lillard is sick and tired, I guess. But I wonder about his injury status wherever he ends up going. Miami, though, I think they would have to rev up the trade pieces in that. I don't think that's even enough. When you think what those first picks are going to be, I'd rather have those down the line when Miami is with or without Butler, kind of an older Butler. I'd rather have it then than train those for now, or the next couple of years, I should say. So I feel like it's going to linger into the season, and nothing will get done for a while.
All right, I'll bring it over to Isaiah. Isaiah, what's your overall thoughts on this latest proposed, I guess, trade idea that they're kind of leaking out online right now about how they think potentially that we can get maybe closer to a potential formalized trade of Dame and the Miami Heat? Right now, there's rumblings of Tyler Hero and 3 first-round picks. Do you feel like that's enough? Do you think that there's more to it? What's your overall thoughts?
I think it's close, but I don't think it's enough. I think that's the package that Miami has been offering for a long time now, and I think that if the Blazers thought it was enough, they would have taken it by now, but they haven't. And it's clear that they don't want Tyler Hero because of his contract. Tyler Hero's a young, good player, but that contract, 4 years, 140. That is a lot of money, and he's a guy that always gets hurt. He's a guy that can't stay healthy. He's inconsistent. He's kind of like D'Angelo Russell in a way that they both have great. When they're great, they're great. When they're bad and they're off, good Lord. Close the gym doors because you don't want the basketballs to be flying out of the gym. That's how bad that they could be. But in terms of the trade, I think other teams are still going to be involved because I just don't buy the fact that Damian Lillard said that I want to go to Miami. And that's it. I don't buy that Dame is just not going to show up if he's traded. Like if he's traded to a trash team like the Pistons or the Charlotte Hornets, yeah, he's not going to show up obviously. But what if he's traded to like Boston? What if he's traded to the Clippers? There's no way that Dame, even though it's not going to be his choice, I don't think that Dame's not going to show up because he got traded to Boston. Like, he would be foolish to not show up if he got traded to Boston to play with Tatum and all the guys that they have there in Boston and play on a team that literally went to the NBA Finals a couple of years ago and went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And also the Clippers. Like, if the Clippers somehow managed to pull it off and it was Dame, Kawhi, like, I don't think that he would sit out. I really don't. Like, I think that some of these teams, they need to start having more guts and just call Dame's bluff. Because if Dame sat out, he would not only be missing basketball games, but he would not get paid. He would basically be put on the retirement list, and he's got 3 years left under contract. No, make that 4. I think he's got 4 years left under contract. Is Damian Lillard going to sit out until when he's 38 years old? He's 34 right now. Is he really going to sit out until he's 38 years old? Like, there's no way. So I think that, like, it's the Heat are definitely going to be in it, but I just don't think the Heat have the assets to be able to get it done. And that's why I'm not ruling out some other team coming in and swooping in and steal Dame Lillard away from the Miami Heat. And it's another reason why I said, I think a couple of weeks ago, if I'm Boston, I would trade Jaylen Brown. I would do it, because Jaylen Brown has already kind of made it clear that he doesn't like the Boston area. He's made some really harsh comments. And my thing is, why hasn't he signed that Supermax yet? Why? Today is July 13th, fellas. He was eligible for it. The windy thing. He was eligible for it July 1st, the same day that Damian Lillard made his trade request. It's July 13th. And couple days ago, there was reports that they're getting closer. They're gonna have talks in Vegas and finalize it. We're almost done with Vegas and Summer League, and he still hasn't finalized it yet. So until Jaylen Brown signs that Supermax deal, if you're a Celtics fan, there's hope that Damian Lillard will be a Boston Celtic, because until he signs it, he can still be traded in a package for Dame, and we are literally 12 days from the day he was eligible, and he still hasn't signed it yet. So I think that a team like Boston, especially with the news that Tatum is pushing for it, and that the Celtics have like so many draft picks in the next several years, and they're setting up to make a seismic trade. It just, like I said, it just screams Boston for Damian Lillard.
Another thing too, Isaiah, and I'll kind of get my overall thoughts, is why haven't the Celtics made another move when they have 7 second-round picks? 7. That's a lot. You usually just can't keep picks. There should be something after. Grant Williams went to Dallas in a 3-team trade. They got 3 or 4 second-round picks out of that. They moved on from Marcus Smart. They got couple of picks from Golden State, the 2 first-round protected picks. What are you going to use it for, right? So, I think specifically from kind of what I've been hearing, what I've been reading is the Jaylen Brown situation. He was on like a vacation but he did go to Summer League. The biggest thing I was hearing about, though, he really wasn't going to a lot of the team's games. Like, he was kind of around, and I know Tatum maybe went to one game. Kind of from I've usually been listening to like a lot of the Boston radio, but a lot of the Celtics guys, they don't seem like they're so concerned about it. But one of them today, when I was listening tonight, they're just like, you should be at least a little worried, I guess you can say, because that's something's not right. You feel like at least something would have happened by now, but we'll talk more about it. For the Damian Lillard right now, I agree with you guys. I think it's going to take a couple weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth. There's going to be some close overall thinking to it. There's going to be some backtracking of it. It's going to take a while, kind of like the Donovan Mitchell and Utah stuff. The James Harden situation. I was reading this today actually at work, and I know that there was reports that, maybe he might go back to Philly, after kind of talking with it. But according to Sam Amick, and this was the guy right around the trade deadline that I was looking at, he said this tweet I was reading from Sam Amick said that James Harden still wants out of Philadelphia and is determined to end up with the Clippers. Harden's stance has not changed. A source close to him told The Athletic he still wants to leave Philadelphia. He's still upset with how free agency was handled by Daryl Morey heading into this last month, and with the recent stuff that Harden's been seeing attending the NBA PA party with Joel Embiid. He's still very determined to potentially go and end up with the Clippers, and that's essentially kind of been the latest on that. So I will start with James. I know that James doesn't seem too thrilled potentially of that potential happen. I do have Harden going to the Clippers, and other thing too about the Sixers right now, I still have my options open of the next big star could be Joel Embiid. I know that could be the case of potentially that happening. So I'll go to James. What's your overall thoughts of potentially James Harden, going out of Philly and maybe joining your basketball team?
I don't need another player that zones out. It's funny though. Like after the playoffs, after the finals, I think it was, or after the Clippers got eliminated. Which of course was in the first round. And then once the Sixers got eliminated by Boston, I had a vision of James Harden being a Clipper, like literally. When I was like, I think I was kind of asleep, but not really. So I thought it would be a good fit for him to swallow his pride kind of and just come off the bench. And all he would have to do is just worry about scoring, So I could definitely see that. I just know his reputation, though. It's just like he doesn't get along with his teammates. He ball hogs, even though he does give a lot of assists. But there's always a thing about the ball. They always fight about the ball wherever he's been. Chris Paul with him in Houston, Jeremy Lin, the Young Thunder team that he was with. There's always players with him that also demand the ball. So that's why I'd be worried if he was a Clipper. Then again, he could play the games that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George chooses not to play. So there's that. Because James Harden doesn't really sit out games like they do. I mean, Kawhi is the MVP when it comes to sitting out games. But then you mentioned it. Everybody wearing white at that boat yacht party, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Weren't too many. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I guess it was crazy. It was just a free for all, and that's I guess where Tom Brady has been having the rumors of being with Kim Kardashian, and that's of course another story for another day.
You know what? I think she was the only woman I saw in any of those pictures that came out of that boat. That shows what Kim Kardashian really is. That she can have fun with all those different men on the boat. Anyway, I swear that was the only woman I saw in any of the pictures. It was just players hanging out with players, and I guess they all played. But dude, with Harden, I saw him hugging up, Embiid and the Sixers owner. So right away, I thought, well, they still have a good relationship. They still have something brewing there. So part of me says, well, I really think he's going to stay with the Sixers one more year and try to do it over again with Embiid. But Tobias Harris has to step up. He gets paid too much. I mean, they all do, but especially Tobias Harris. So I'm going to go with Harden stays with Philadelphia. As bleak as that looks, but that yacht party made me think different.
All right, and Isaiah, what do you think specific with Harden? Do you still think at this point in time that he's going to ask out? Do you think that his kind of market's kind of limited as of right now, or do you think that there's still potential hope of him potentially going back to Philadelphia and maybe having an awkward, I guess you could say, overall return there after speculation of the offseason frustrations with Daryl Morey?
I think he's done in Philly. I don't think that his issues were with the Sixers owner or it was with Embiid. I think it had to do with Daryl Morey. He did not like the fact that Morey mishandled his free agency and there was bad communication like all around. So I think that his time in Philly is going to come to an end. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I think that Nick Nurse, their new head coach, is just kind of sick of, or he didn't want to coach James Harden to begin with. I mean, when he was asked about James Harden, he had some like really a quote that was like really like that was just made your eyes perk up, and he kind of just said like, yeah, it'd be good to have James back, but if not, then I think we'll be fine. Like who says that if they want to coach a player? Like who says that we'll be fine if he doesn't come back? But yeah, like I think he's definitely gone from the Sixers. I think that it's a matter of time that he'll get traded. I don't know who's going to want to trade for him, though. That's the big thing, because it just seems like all these teams that would have been trade teams or trade partners, they either have filled up their salary cap space with free agent moves, or they're already set roster-wise. So I think right now, if I have to think about where James Harden could go besides the Clippers, because I think the Clippers still make a lot of sense for him, even though I don't think James wants that to happen. I know he's frowning at me.
I don't know what I want.
Watch out for the New York Knicks. That's a team that's really intriguing.
I like that, actually.
Because they want a star. They've been going after a superstar for, it seems like, many years now. And yeah, they have Jalen Brunson, but let's face it, he's not a superstar. He's more like, remember when we were talking about the Texas Rangers and how they don't have superstars? He's kind of like Marcus Semien. He's a really good player, but
complimentary star.
Yeah, he's not superstar. So I think James Harden could make sense there. Obviously, you have Brunson. James Harden has played off the ball somewhat. Brunson has also played off the ball when he was with Luka Doncic, so it could work, that dynamic there. But I think that with both of them, if you had Brunson and you had Harden, I think that definitely could make a lot of sense. And then another team that I'm definitely keeping an eye on, although I don't know if it's a possibility, the Cleveland Cavaliers. There's something weird going on in Cleveland. There's something funny about Cleveland. Like, there's all these rumors about Darius Garland, and there's rumors that Donovan Mitchell might get traded at the trade deadline if things go bad. I've heard that. There's rumors that, some of the Cavs players weren't really happy last year. So
Jared Allen, too.
Jared Allen, yeah, there's his rumors. Like, none of these would be coming out if there wasn't anything going on. The fact that these rumors are coming out, and the Cavs, they made the playoffs last year. They were the number 4 seed. They had a great run, and now these things are coming out. It seems like there's a little bit of a fracture in that building. So I wouldn't be shocked if they were to offer Darius Garland for James Harden, that would get done like that. But I would not rule out the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that right now, I think his market's really just the Clippers. But when you mentioned the Knicks, the reason why I kind of perked up is because if Embiid left, one of the teams that's been rumored right now for Embiid has been the New York Knicks that I've been looking at. So that would be kind of funny happening if they ended up reuniting together, but over in New York. That would be really, really interesting. But we'll see what happens with these two guys. Like, I know it's probably still going to take a while. Really, the other stuff in the NBA, I know the Summer League stuff, Victor Wembanyama, some other stars kind of been doing that stuff. That's coming to an end. Really quickly before we conclude, though, did you guys see the latest of the Adam Silver? He was talking about two cities that are looking for expansion-type teams. One is Vegas, and one is Seattle. I really just want to quickly get your overall thoughts in terms of, do you feel like those two cities could work? Or is there a city that you might have in mind that you would love to have an NBA team be a part of? Of course, they're looking for some teams there. So I guess I'll start with you, Isaiah. What do you think of this overall thing that Adam Silver is trying to talk with I guess you could say NBA league owners and stuff about potentially expansion teams. I know that's kind of been popular over the course of a couple of years with different other sports. Seattle and Vegas. I like the fits. How about you?
I do too. I like it a lot. I think Seattle definitely deserves to have an NBA team again. I mean, I've visited Seattle like so many times this year, and their sports fans are one of the most passionate fan bases in all of sports. I mean, they are passionate about their Seahawks. They are passionate about their Mariners. They're passionate about their Kraken. When they are good, I mean, the stadiums, the arenas, the domes, they get loud, man. And I think that if the Sonics were to come back, I think every game would be sold out. I think every game would be super loud, and I think that it would be a great product on the basketball court. So the Kraken definitely need not the Kraken, the Super Sonics definitely need to come back. Imagine if there was a Kraken basketball team. Well, oh man, that'd be interesting. But the Sonics definitely need to come back. Vegas, I could see because Vegas is also very passionate about their teams, and you're in a big market, big entertainment market, so that definitely makes a lot of sense, and I would definitely like to see that happen. Another city that I don't think Adam Silver has really mentioned about in terms of like getting another team is, believe it or not, I would honestly like to see a team in like St. Louis, because St. Louis is a major sports capital. They have the Cardinals there, they have the Blues there. Their fan base is very passionate. Their fan base is very loyal. I think that NBA basketball in St. Louis would definitely do extremely well. And I mean, look at the Rams. Like, the Rams sucked for so many years, but there were people still showing up to the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis to root on the Rams, even though they suck. So I think NBA basketball still would do really well in St. Louis. And I think if you had a team in that area, you could kind of balance it out in terms of from west to east.
All right. What about you, James? Any thoughts about that? Latest from Adam Silver?
Yeah. First, I just want to piggyback on Isaiah mentioned in St. Louis. They had the Hawks. They had their one championship back in 1957. But they left. The Cardinals of the NFL left. The Rams of the NFL left. So St. Louis isn't really a good basketball, football town. So there's no way they'll go to St. Louis. I could see more Kansas City because of Mahomes. I heard they're interested in a hockey team possibly. Kansas basketball, is huge, and Kansas State too. So if there was a Midwest team, I could see Kansas City, not St. Louis. Thing is, I wanted one expansion. I would want relocation. I don't know why there's a team in New Orleans. And I don't know why they aren't trading names with Utah. They should be the Jazz. The Pelicans, it's an ugly bird. There's just no need for the Pelicans and New Orleans to have a basketball team. I mean, they barely show up in the playoff games. Zion doesn't want to be there, even though he fits everywhere. Literally. What I would hope the New Orleans franchise moves to Seattle. I think that would help out. Because when you think about it too, the geography of the NBA is all messed up in a way. You have the Memphis Grizzlies that is nearest to the Atlantic Ocean, but they play in the Western Conference. Remember, Ja was saying, "Oh, I'm okay in the Western Conference," and he wasn't. Hide the guns. New Orleans, it's what, east of the Mississippi River. Mm-hmm. So how the hell are they in the Western Conference? So I would move New Orleans to Seattle, and then for Vegas, it'd be great if they could use the name Aces, but the WNBA already has that. There was another team that I would move, but the Clippers. Yeah. So I would tear down whatever dome they're building now, and the Clippers should just move out of the Lakers' shadow to Las Vegas, and then everybody would come watch the
That makes a
opponent.
lot of sense, honestly.
Doesn't it?
I like it.
So I wouldn't have to watch him ever again or care about him again. Same thing with the Angels. Just move them away. The Raiders are already there.
Take the A's place. Take the A's place. Move the Angels to Vegas.
If they did, I wouldn't care about them. So that's what I would have hoped. But I just think the Clippers, they're too much in the Lakers' shadow. Even if they win one championship, it wouldn't matter. So they would be good in Vegas. And then New Orleans should move to Seattle. And that would kind of balance out the conferences correctly for me. And then with the name changes too, I would have the Utah Grizzlies, the New Orleans Jazz, and then instead of Memphis being the Grizzlies, I would just call them the Blues for their, jazz blues scene. That's what I would want in the perfect world with the relocation or no expansion, just different names and relocation.
Interesting. All right, guys. Well, we got to about the 3-hour mark, at least close to it. We had a really good show tonight. Really packed show. We got through a lot of stuff to it. Probably a lot longer than I thought, but man, we got through a lot of discussion. Let's go now to our closing remarks. I'll go to either one of you guys. I just want to say thank you guys for coming on as usual. Thank you for John coming on earlier tonight on the program. I know that Chardot was watching. So I appreciate him coming on. Isaiah obviously had some comments earlier before coming on, so I appreciate those comments. We got through a lot. We got through a lot of bit of baseball, a lot of NFL stuff. The top 5 from Isaiah's list will definitely I'll be thinking about tonight. Obviously the craziness of that, and just everything. I'm really excited for kind of everything that's coming up. This past night, by the way, guys, in sports, this was like one of the most dead overall days, in terms of just nothing. So I thought that tonight, doing some sports tonight was going to be a good kind of leeway so we can kind of kick off a lot of the stuff coming up. I'll get over one of you guys. I'll lead you guys kind of from there. I'm getting tired myself, so I want to stay my voice. And all right. Thank you guys, as usual, for coming on. I'll kick it over to you guys.
Well, it was a good show. Thanks for having me on the program tonight, even though I came in a little bit late. James, thanks for coming on. Ben, thanks for hosting the show. What a great show it was. To all the fans out there as well, thanks for tuning in. I know we had a couple of viewers tuning in at a lot at the points in the show, so that was great. But my final thoughts is, man, I cannot wait for tomorrow and on because baseball second half starts tomorrow. The stretch run begins tomorrow. We have the trade deadline, I believe, in a couple of weeks from now. Then you have NFL training camps starting in a couple of weeks. You have, don't forget, College Football Media Day is next week. So that basically kicks off into, after that, you have college football training camps opening up as well. So we have football training camps opening up. We've got, baseball stretch run. We've got trade deadline. We've got, the Harden-Lillard situation, that's going to be hovering over our heads. It's going to be, insane. And I cannot wait to see what the sports world entails the next several weeks and months, man. I can't wait for football season this year, and especially college football season, because there's going to be a lot of parity, and there's going to be a lot of, teams like Alabama, Ohio State. There's a lot of these teams that we're used to seeing be the top dog, but they're going to have new quarterbacks. So there's going to be a lot of new blood around them. So there's going to be a lot of kind of unknowns around them. And a couple predictions I do want to throw before I throw it over to James is in terms of the second half of the baseball season. I think there's 2 things. I think number one, I got the Marlins actually overtaking the Braves into winning the East. I think the Marlins. I've been very impressed with the Marlins. The Marlins have really impressed me, and they've got a pretty easy schedule down the stretch, while the Braves have a pretty tough schedule. So, yeah, I think the Marlins will pull what. They'll pull a massive comeback. They're 8 games back right now, but hey, they still got games against the Braves left. They've got a whole second half left. I think the Marlins will overtake the Braves and win the NL East. And the last prediction I'll make is that I do think that Shohei will get traded. I do think Shohei will get traded because the Angels will fall apart in the next couple of weeks, and Artie Moreno's going to realize, man, I gotta rebuild my farm system. I got him going to the Yankees because I think the Yankees are going to be so desperate. They're going to throw in Anthony Volpe. They're going to throw in a bunch of players, and they're going to be so desperate to make a run, and they're going to get them because, like we know, they're the Yankees. So I got Shohei getting traded, and I think the Marlins miraculously overtake the Braves to win the NL East.
Well, another thing too about Aaron Judge, you just don't know how long Aaron Judge is going to be out for. So that could be something. But I just don't know if getting a rental for the Yankees is worth specifically kind of getting rid of a lot of their farm that's been really up and coming.
Right.
But Isaiah, a lot of good points for tonight. I really appreciate it as always coming on. James, anything you want to say really quick before we conclude?
How do I follow that? Yeah.
Well,
me and Ben don't want.
You do you.
Me and Ben don't want Ohtani to go to the Yankees. I know that for sure.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, and then I can't see Atlanta collapsing. They're not the Mets. There's no way that's gonna happen. Hey, I should never do 2 podcasts in a row. I did one Halos in the Infield before this, and I was like ripping on them, from the highest of heights. And I brought that energy to the show, hopefully. So if I said anything off color or whatever, that was from the last podcast I did where I got it all out about the Angels. And then you found out about the Raiders' misery, the Clippers' misery, and all rolled into one. This felt like therapy for me, where I wish I didn't have favorite teams. I feel like I could just follow every team or every league and not have to worry about heartburn or my heart. But when
Gruden might beat the NFL, James. Gruden might beat the NFL. There's your one saving grace right there. I mean, he might come back to the Raiders if he does.
No. All my teams wanted to go back to like 1999 or 1985 when everybody else is progressing. So why the hell would I want Joe Madden or John Gruden back? It's just crazy. But yeah, I felt like this was a therapy session. I got a lot out. This was fun. Hopefully we can do this again. And exciting time of the year. I know yesterday was the only day where all 4 pro sports was not playing meaningful games. I think they had summer league going.
I don't count summer league. Let's all be real here.
Right.
I mean, that's really more rec basketball. That's playing in your gym with some rookies and going out and putting it on TV. I don't really count that, but hey, some people do.
There was no MLB. There was no WNBA. There was no really anything else going. So when you think about it, that's why I stayed like 12 hours at work because I knew nothing was on yesterday. So yeah, it's a fun time though. When Isaiah just mentioned it about all the stuff coming up, at least for you guys, not for me with my teams. There's nothing going on for my teams. But yo, thank you for having me on. I came on early. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. So thank you for having me on.
Well, appreciate you guys. I'd love to let's try to do an encore, I guess, next time out. I don't know if we could top this one because we had a good show tonight. But thank you guys for all joining as usual. In terms of Isaiah, any of our other shows coming up, would you like to kind of announce in terms of when those will be around? I did say before you came on that we will have Extra Point coming up this month, as Laura mentioned to me last show I was on.
Yeah, so we will have Extra Point coming up at the end of July. The other shows I would say is we're gonna have Sports Weekly or a batter up sometime next week because I'm off Monday to Thursday, so I'll be able to do some programs on those weeks. Next week. So I think either a Sports Weekly or a batter up, but I have to confirm with Loro. But where it's going to be a Sports Weekly or a batter up will be coming your way on Monday or Tuesday around that time.
All right. Well, keep tuned for that. In terms of my show, I hope to be back by the end of this weekend or early next week. Keep on the loop on that. So, without further ado, this has been Kruse, Isaiah Leon, James Gonzalez. Without further ado, have a good night, everyone, and we will see you guys all next time. Have a good night, James.
See you.